Hey team, Yasin here, and in this training, we're going to be going over your program's onboarding and management. We're going to go ahead and break it down step by step, so that way you can go ahead and put together the pieces of your program as you are getting to go ahead and launch. Of course, we are continuing our theme inside of this training of launching your remote wellness practice version 1.0, as well as completing the final trainings for you to go ahead and get your remote wellness certification. Okay, now a couple quick points on here. Of course, the training outline is going to be extremely valuable for you for this training as well, because there are going to be a lot of tactical mini trainings that are going to walk you through everything step by step. So if you do need the guide, which you probably will, make sure that you do go ahead and use the outline for this specific training as well. With that being said, let's go ahead and hop right into talking about what this training is about. So inside of this training, we are going to be breaking down two foundational topics. The very first foundational topic is going to be all about onboarding. We're going to walk you through what your onboarding is going to potentially look like, what the homework for that's going to be, the templates, the swipe files, the copy and paste, so that way you are ready to rock and roll, as well as setting up your calendars. We're going to talk about that as well. And then the second foundational topic is all going to be about student management and student success and the ongoing components of that. And so after hearing that, the question that you might have is, okay, that makes sense. Well, how in the world does this actually fit into the process, right? How does the actual process look like, and where does the onboarding and where does the management actually play in? And so this is really what the entire process looks like thus far, is that you are going to be having the strategy session, right? And strategy session is going to get booked whenever you have attention, whether that be through organic marketing, paid marketing, direct response, branding, whatever it might be. The strategy session is going to get booked from somewhere, and we'll talk about more about that in the game of marketing. But the strategy session is going to get booked, and then at the end of the strategy session, right, you're going to walk the prospect through the entire strategy session, and then if they are a good fit, at the end, you're going to go ahead and make your offer, and then when the student is ready to go ahead and work with you, or if they're ready to go ahead and work with you, at the end of the call, you're going to do two things. Number one, you're going to go ahead and collect cash, and that's if the student is a paid student. So obviously inside of this module, you still might be working with test and practice students if that's what you choose to do. Then if you choose to actually go ahead and go the paid route, then you're going to go ahead and use the invoicing and the payments and all of that stuff that we've already set up previously with your bank account XYZ to go ahead and collect cash. And then number two, you're then going to go ahead and also schedule your first coaching call with that prospect using the TCK calendar we're going to walk you through inside of this training. Okay, now what's going to happen in between the time that you have the strategy session and the time that you have coaching call number one, what's going to happen in between this time is what is called kickoff onboarding. Okay, now in some cases, like the hybrid model, where you might actually have a kickoff call that might happen on here. The thing is that in the hybrid model, the reason you need the call is because the classroom is really what's supporting a lot of the training, right? But the reason you don't have to have a kickoff call in the one-on-one model is because of the fact that you are doing the coaching calls live. And so as a result, you do not need a kickoff call because the coaching calls are basically already calls. And what you're also going to have a kickoff call homework, which is going to be standard, okay? And then there's also going to be admin setup where you need to go ahead and set up the payments. And then you are going to be going ahead and having a reminder workflow that is attached to this TCK calendar, okay? Now, if I'm losing you, don't worry. We're going to walk you through everything step by step. I'm just kind of giving you the overview of that. And so this is what's going to happen in between the time of the strategy session and the actual first coaching call that's going to be scheduled on there, right? And so this is all of the kickoff onboarding process, and we're going to go ahead and walk through that right now. Now, the other question that you might have is, why is any of this important? The reason why any of what it is that we're talking about inside of this training is important is because you have to remember the theme of what it is that we are doing so far inside of the certification process, right? The certification process, which is pretty much the first half of this entire program, is all about getting you set up with the product side of things, okay? Why do we go ahead and prioritize that in the very beginning? The reason is because for most amateur newbie beginners who are just getting started out, the biggest question that they might have is, what do I sell? What do I sell? What do I sell? Because quite frankly, once you actually get the principles of marketing, you get the principles of sales in place, these are just ongoing activities that are getting attention and then helping people decide to work with you, right? So then the vast majority of somebody's time, a business owner's time, especially in the one-on-one model in the beginning, is spent on the product side of things. Because here's the thing, once you end up, let's say, for example, you have an amazing marketing campaign and you end up getting, let's say, 10 sales, right? You end up getting 10 students, 10 clients to join your program. Well, if you're in the one-on-one model, well, guess what? You might actually end up having to stop marketing and sales because of the fact that you're having to focus on the product side of things. And so that's obviously later on why being able to scale to multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars, past $300,000 a year, you go ahead and use the hybrid model because of the fact that you have a cap on how much you can actually bring in to your product, right? And so this is what we are doing. The reason why we're focusing on onboarding and management right now is because what we're doing is we're prepping and putting the final pieces, the smaller details, finalizing everything that is going to be going on with your product. That is the focus and the theme of what it is that we are doing inside of this module. We're putting all of the small things, right? We're talking about, hey, we got to get your bank account set up, get your payment processor set up, get your invoicing system set up. We're talking about getting your calendar set up, getting your text messages set up, getting your email set up. All of these are, yeah, they're not sexy, but they are all of the in-between details that are very important. So that way you can get your product finalized. You can start getting a couple reps in there. You might go ahead and use a little bit of your warm network, your warm market, right? Those people who might already know you, to get some initial test and practice students in to really practice what all of this looks like. And then once you actually open this all up to cold traffic using marketing and sales, then you'll actually know what the heck is going on. Because when you go ahead and get negative Nancy and Debbie and, Jonathan, who you have no idea who they are and they're complete strangers, and they go ahead and get on the call with you, they are not going to be as lenient. They are not going to be as nice as the people who are in your network right now to practice with, right? And so that's why you want to understand what your product is, because the last thing you want to do, because you don't want to ruin your reputation, the last thing you want to do is you want to go ahead and start talking to strangers who may not like you in the very beginning. You're going to have to win them over. You're going to have to go ahead and really have them join your program, and you have no idea what in the world you're doing for your product. That's terrible. And so that's exactly the reason why we have this entire certification in the beginning of this, so that way you're actually qualified to deliver a quality product. So that way, once you actually do have strangers who don't know you, who are just really skeptical, who might not trust you, and they actually join your program, you're not actually going ahead and delivering a terrible service because you have no idea what the heck you're talking about. And that's exactly the reason why there was the coaching calls and all of this work that had to happen before that. And so this is the reason why what it is that we're talking about with onboarding and management is so important, so that way we can actually go ahead and deliver the final pieces of putting your entire product together. Does that make sense? I hope so. It's very, very, very important to understand the bigger picture, so that way you can understand exactly what it is that we're working on, how all of this plays into the bigger picture of you actually becoming a remote wellness practitioner and having that complete career change where you are able to go ahead and live the lifestyle that you want and be able to make the changes in your occupation, XYZ, right? So that is the bigger picture, and it's very important to understand that, okay? Next up, we're going to go ahead and talk about is the theme of this training. Because similar to some of the other foundational trainings that were inside of this module, you're going to start to notice a very similar recurring theme. And that is that these trainings are designed to provide you the tools, right? As we start to put the final details of your program together, these trainings are really kind of providing you the tools so that way you can go on in the future and customize what you want for your program, right? And this is exactly the reason why we're still applying the done-for-you, do-it-yourself approach that we've talked about in previous modules, right? What we are doing is we're sharing with you the foundational basics of what has worked for us, right? That is the done for you piece. And then what we're doing is we're really walking you through all of the done for you pieces, so that way you can go ahead and get rocking and rolling on day number 1. And then what's going to happen is that you yourself are going to start to make tweaks to your own system the more you actually use them. You're going to make them better. You're going to find out what works better. You're going to go ahead and make it even better for your students. That is going to be where the do-it-yourself piece actually comes in. And so I would urge you to really go ahead and make sure that you do follow our instructions that we are going ahead and providing for you. Do what we recommend in the beginning. And then as you get more reps, as you do it more, it's going to naturally start to change and build on its own, because all of this is going to really cater around what is your style, what is your taste, what is your flavor around how you want to be able to run your remote wellness practice. And the beautiful thing about this is that when you have this approach, it gives you the freedom and the flexibility to then be able to customize and get creative because of the fact that you started with the foundation foundations that we're providing you, and then you really built up from there. Are there more advanced things than what it is that we're talking about inside of this training? Of course there are. As your income starts to grow and as you start to get past 10,000, you get to 20,000, 30,000, 50,000, 100,000, right? We are well past $100,000 a month at this point. And so obviously there are more advanced things that you can layer on there as your income grows, but you want to start off with those foundations and those basics. That's very important, okay? The other very important theme that I want to go ahead and expose you to right now from the very beginning is that I would urge you to remember over and over and over again, we're going to repeat this so that way you do not forget, is that what's happening is that as you go through this process, you are unconsciously incompetent. You don't even know some of the things that we're talking about even exist, right? Even some of the features in TCK that we're talking about, some of the aspects of onboarding, you don't even know that they exist. And so what this training and this knowledge is initially going to do is it's going to expose you to how much you don't know. And this is what we call the valley of despair, in which you become consciously incompetent. You now become aware of how incompetent you are of this new subject matter that you have been exposed to. And now most people end up falling in this valley of despair because of the fact that it is too overwhelming for them. And so you have to be able to push through with repetition in order to be able to get to the point where you are consciously competent and then getting to the point where you are unconsciously competent. Okay, so the same way when you first learned how to ride a bike or learned how to drive, okay? And so just like the same way that you do everything for the first time, with repetition, it is naturally going to get better and better and better. And so that is what I would urge you and remind you of as we go ahead and start this training, because that is going to be the recurring theme throughout all of these trainings, okay? Now, what we're going to go ahead and do next is we're going to go ahead and actually dive into the first major topic for this specific training, which is the onboarding piece for your transformation program. So let's go ahead and talk about onboarding and really breaking it down for you step by step, okay? So the very first question that you might have is, well, what is onboarding? So onboarding, also known as customer activation, is the process in business in which you take a prospect who just recently became a customer, and what you do is you properly get them familiar or activated with your service or product and set the expectations and get them integrated and really start to deliver on the promises that were made on the marketing and the sales side. Okay, now I know we talk about this concept of onboarding specifically in business, but this really applies whenever you are bringing somebody new into a new thing that they have not been exposed to in the past. So whether that be when you are hiring somebody, even in the case of sometimes I talk to some students about, hey, even in marriage or even in relationships, there's like an onboarding period, right? Where you're getting to know each other. There's a courting period, right? All of that, setting the expectations from the get-go is so critical because of the fact that people learn impressions and patterns. And so what people are doing when they first join your program is they are figuring out, okay, you know what? I just spent this money. Is this a company that I actually want to do business with in the long term? And this is exactly why onboarding is so important, is because it is at the point of onboarding that the client or the student decides whether or not they are going to continue doing business with you or not. Now, this is kind of counterintuitive, right? You think, okay, you know what? It's on the strategy session that the prospect or the customer thinks that they're going to continue doing business with me or not. But that's not actually the case. After they've given you money, what they're doing is in the initial 14-day, 30-day, 60-day period, they are deciding whether or not they are going to continue to do business with you or not, whether or not they're going to ghost you, whether or not you actually meet the standard for being able to be worthy of the money that they paid you, right? And so the onboarding is the number one indicator of if a customer is going to continue is based off of how the onboarding goes. And so most of your backouts, right? Backouts are what we call a student who basically backs out of the program in between the actual strategy session and then starting of the actual program, right? All of that comes from buyer's remorse, which is either right after the sale or right after the onboarding meeting, which in the case of the one-on-one model is going to be the coaching call number one, right? These are the two biggest points in your onboarding process that you have to make sure that you are filling in the gaps. And so having a very robust onboarding is so absolutely critical because of the fact that is at that point that the student or the prospect is deciding whether they're going to continue with you. Okay, Okay, so these are things that you can choreograph, so that way there is no gap or a leak in the customer experience, and you are able to go ahead and make this better and better over time. So we're gonna go ahead and walk through here in just a second the step-by-step of the version 1.0 of your onboarding process, and that's what I wanna go ahead and really emphasize for you again, is that this is just version 1.0. It's just a matter of getting the foundations in place, and then you're gonna be able to go ahead and create an even more robust onboarding experience as you go ahead and get better and better from this. Because you really have to think about it from the customer's perspective, is that you want to say, okay, you know what, they just bought something in their mind which was probably premium or expensive. Well, they're expecting somewhat of a good onboarding experience, right? And so if you go ahead and, purchase something and, you just don't even get any communication after that, it's like, cool, I'll see you next week or 2 weeks from now. And then it's just, you've ghosted them for 2 weeks. Well, they're going to be like, well, what the heck's going on here? I want a refund. This seems like a scam. What's going on here? And so that's exactly the piece that the onboarding fixes. And so what we're going to go ahead and do right now is we're going to go ahead and walk you through step by step on getting your version 1.0 of your onboarding experience set up. And there are going to be 3 major pieces to this entire process. Okay, so we're going to walk you through number 1, which is going to be your onboarding homework. Then number 2 is going to be getting your TCK calendars set up. That's going to be very important, getting all the reminder campaigns, the text messages, the emails, all of that kind of stuff. And then number 3 is all going to be about payment tracking. Because although we have been talking about onboarding and the customer experience side of things, but there is also admin setup that is required in the onboarding process, right? So when you actually sign up a customer, you have to make sure that you are keeping all of your files organized, you're remembering when to actually charge their card based off their payment agreement, based off all that kind of stuff. And so this payment tracking system that we're going to share with you is something that we've learned after doing this for so long. And so this is going to be the version 1.0 that is going to suit you based off of your guys' current income level. And so we're going to walk you through that admin side and exactly what that looks like, so you can have that payment tracker set up as well. Okay, so what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and walk into the first part of this onboarding setup, which is the step-by-step instructions of your onboarding homework. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and cut over to a mini training that's going to walk you through that, and we're going to go ahead and do that right now. All right, welcome to this mini training that's going to walk you through the step-by-step instructions of getting your onboarding kickoff homework, intake form, and everything set up. So let's go ahead and hop right into it. There are going to be multiple parts in getting all of this set up. The very first part that we're going to be going ahead and talking about is setting up your Google form, which is your main kickoff homework. Okay, so what this actually is, and this is the way that we've done it, again, we're just sharing with you what has worked for us and our experience. The way that we have always done it is we've gone ahead and set up a Google form for ourselves, and then in that Google form is basically, this is kind of like the main container that holds all of the other things, right? So this is kind of the main container that holds the intake form. Hey, this is what you got to do. Hey, make sure you watch the onboarding, make sure you submit your agreement, make sure you go ahead and join the community. All of that is what it is that we are talking about inside of this main Google form. So what's going to happen is that we're actually going to be sharing with you, in typical RWA over delivery fashion, we're going to be sharing with you the actual copy template of this Google form, so you can go ahead and save it inside of your Google Drive. Okay, so inside of the action steps underneath this training, there is going to be a link to a form, and when you click on that link, it's actually going to take you to a page that looks like this. And what you're going to go ahead and do is you're going to click on make a copy, and when you make a copy, it's going to go ahead and automatically make a copy of this Google form into your Google Drive. Now, here's the thing. It's not going to be in the proper folder in your Google Drive. And so what you're going to need to do is that you're going to need to go ahead and use this icon right here, which is this folder icon, and you're going to have to click on it, and you're going to need to move this copy of this Google form into your actual company Drive folder, and then you're going to want to go ahead and move it into product, and then if you want to make a folder called onboarding, you can go ahead and do that as well. Okay, so that is going to be where you need to make sure that you move it, so that way all of your files are organized. Remember, we talked about the importance of that in the past. Okay, then after that, what you're then going to go ahead and do is you're going to go ahead and edit the Google form according to what it is that you want. So you've gone ahead and seen on here, we said, okay, welcome to, insert remote wellness practice name here, right? Family, whatever. And then this is going ahead and giving a little bit of structure for you, because this is what we actually use in our own. And obviously you might remember this when you joined RWA. At that time, you probably remember we had a form just like this or very similar to this, right? After that, we went ahead and asked for first name, name. This is just like a super quick, something they can go ahead and let us know, so that way we know that they submitted it. Then after that, we have on here is step number 1, is your first coaching call scheduled? Now, obviously for us, because we're running the hybrid model, we have like an orientation video. So for you, that might not actually be the case. So let me switch over here so I can edit this live with you. Is that, to ensure that you start the program properly, have you already scheduled your first coaching call, right? So this might be something like an extra check that you're doing. Obviously, you're going to be scheduling the first coaching call at the end of the strategy session, but you might be actually having them further verify whether they went ahead and actually did this. Now, remember, this is 100% editable by you. If you don't want to ask this question, if you're like, you know what, I don't see the point of it, by all means, delete it. It doesn't have to be in this format, okay? So please do not be a remote control spoon-fed student who expects to follow blindly, okay? Then obviously you can go ahead and change the picture, remove the picture here if you would like as well. And then you can even include a link on here. So all of that, if I go ahead and remove this picture, let me show you that, cool. And then you can have like maybe like a yes on here. And then you can have like a no. And then, if not, schedule here. And then you can have a link to the actual calendar there, which we're going to walk you through later on inside of the main training. After that, you're going to have a section that says complete the transformation intake form. And there's going to be a link to a jot form. Now, this is going to be a second part that we're going to go ahead and set up in just a second in the onboarding, but I just want you to know where that is. And then this image right here, inside of the Google form, this image right here is going to be an image that you take once you actually get your jot form transformation intake form set up, okay? So you're gonna be able to replace this image. All you gotta do is you just come over here and then you click on these 3 dots and you're gonna go ahead and change or remove. So this is just a filler image for right now, because obviously you don't want it to say RWA template and you wanna have your logo instead of the NutriFit Wellness logo on there, right? And then it says completed the NFW transformation intake form and submitted. Yes, no, maybe so, right? The client or the student's going to check that off. Then after that, signed and submitted your student agreement. And so this is, again, another check to make sure that the student or the client has actually gone ahead and submitted that. So this is on here, if you have difficulty finding it, you can find it from our provider. Now on here, it might say, jot form, because obviously you guys are not using PandaDoc, or maybe you are. Obviously you can have your support email on here as well. So right, support email right here. And then this image, just like we had for the intake form above, that is going to be replaced here as well, because you don't want it to say NutriFit, Wellness student agreement. So you're going to go in and just take a screenshot of your actual student agreement, and then you just come in here and you click on change. If you don't know how to do a screenshot, well, guess what? There's a gazillion YouTube videos and Google articles about how to take screenshots on computers based off what computer you have, right? And there's a lot of softwares that you can use as well. So I would highly encourage to make sure that you go ahead and Google or YouTube that if you don't know how to take a screenshot and how to upload the image on there, okay? So that is going to be on there. Sign and submit the student agreement. Then after that, if you do have a student community, you can go ahead and have the link for that, right? Community link. And then you can also have an image on there as well. So you want to make sure you replace this image. Don't actually use this image the way that it is. If you do not have a student community, you can go ahead and actually remove this question altogether. And then finally on here, you have social media setup. And then the social media setup can be like, hey, add myself on Facebook. So that way you have another line of communication with them if you ever need to reach them, or you want to build your friends list on Facebook. So that way you actually have those connections. You can go ahead and have that on there as well. And then on here, if you wanted to go ahead and have, private community, I know this question is on here twice, but if you wanted to go ahead and maybe remove it from here, leave it on here, or if you wanted to go ahead and kind of change it around. In fact, what we'll probably do is, let's say we'll go ahead and delete this one here. So that way there's only 4 steps. Let's go ahead and make it 4 steps. So that way it's a little bit easier for you guys as well, right? So social media setup, hey, if you want to add me as a friend and then join the private community, or you can just delete this entire question and just have 3 steps if you would like as well. And then finally, after that, you just have a little bit of a note on here. If you want to change this and edit this, you can as well. And so like I said, this Google form really is kind of the container of all of the steps that that your first off student needs to complete in order to properly get onboarded, right? In fact, if you want to go ahead and actually change this and you wanted to maybe record like a YouTube video, like a short, unlisted video, and just record that, put that on YouTube, and then put the link for that on here, you could do that as well. It's like, hey, watch this orientation video. And then it's like, hey, welcome to, NutriFit Wellness. I'm super excited that you joined. I know you might have spoken to either me or somebody else, on the strategy session, but I'm super pumped for you to have your first coaching call. I just want you to know that we absolutely see this as a responsibility. We want you to know that we take this seriously, XYZ. right? You can look at the orientation video that we have every single time you log into the classroom, and you can even model that if you really wanted to, right? And so there's a lot of opportunity in terms of once you understand the tools and once you actually get the foundations in place for your version 1.0 onboarding, there's a lot of ways that you can make that customer experience better and better and better. And we're just providing you the foundations and opening those doors for you, so that way you can get your gears really thinking. And remember, this is just the foundation, basic elements. Start basic and then really start to be able to build up from there, because everything great always started with something small. Okay, so this is part one of getting your onboarding set up, which is actually the Google form. And then now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get into part two, which is all about setting up this intake form. So you see this intake form that's right here, that's located within the actual Google form. We're going to go ahead and walk you through setting up that intake form, so that way you can actually go ahead and ask questions to your new student that's going to go ahead and give you more information about them. So we're going to go ahead and get over to part two of this setup and actually walk you through getting your intake form set up as well. So let's go ahead and cut over to part number two now. All right, welcome to part two of getting your onboarding set up step by step, which is going to be about setting up your intake form. So just a quick reminder, the intake form, which we sometimes call the transformation intake form, at RWA we call it the breakthrough intake form. What it is that it's your chance to collect more information about your new student or client at a deeper level before they actually start their program. And so this is what we talked about in previous modules, in which we said we were going to do the RWA over delivery promise and allow you to be able to have the template that we actually use within our own remote wellness practice. So that way you can further understand before coaching call number one, you can further understand how you may actually customize the program or address any concerns or difficulties of the student beforehand. Okay. And so what's happening is that you're collecting information on the strategy session, right? You have the strategy session on here. And then after that, you have this intake form, right? The intake form on here, intake, right? And then after that, you then have coaching call number one, where you are further getting even more understanding of their goals. And so when you put together how much you are learning about this prospect, about this new student, combining all three of these elements, you will have a very good picture of exactly what their struggles are. Maybe in the beginning, because you're a new RWP, you may not 100% kind of put all that together, but then the more and more new students that you get exposed to, the more you're going to start to realize, oh, this is just like, Tina's exactly like Jacob. Jacob also struggled with this. Oh, Tina's exactly like Michelle, or Michelle's exactly like, XYZ. And you're going to start to be able to put these patterns together and start to see the trends of the typical types of students that you're getting inside of your program using all of this information. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and walk you through how to actually set up the intake form, how to import it, and then how to be able to actually link it inside of your Google form. So that way you only have to send one link to your new students, which is the Google form. And then the Google form is kind of like the mothership or the skyscraper kind of form in which you're able to link everything else, right? You're linking the student community in the Google form. You're linking the intake form into the Google form. All of that is happening on that one form. So that way it's just one link, onboarding, kickoff call, homework, and boom, that's it. So let's go ahead and walk you through how to actually go ahead and set up this intake form so you can go ahead and get more information about your new student. So the very first thing is that we are going to be providing for you a template. And what you're going to be doing is you're going to be taking that template and you're going to be importing it into your Jot form. So we've talked about this in the past. TCK does have their forms builder. However, at the time of going through this training right now, they are working on revamping that. And so it's going to be about 3 to 6 months. They're going to have agreements in there. There's going to have all of these features that are on JotForm are going to be inside of TCK over the next few months, and then we'll be sure to go ahead and update this training at that time. But as of right now, JotForm really is the easiest one to go ahead and use, and it's very simple. So what you're going to do is you're going to find that in the action steps underneath this training, there is going to be a link for this actual template. Now, I want to go ahead and warn you, like I did in the past, is that when you click on that link, do not send us an email and say, oh, I can't edit that template. Of course you can't edit that template because we can't have hundreds of students editing the same template. And so what you need to do is you need to take the link that we provide for you, and you need to go into your JotForm account. Okay, you got to go over here. You go into JotForm, create form, and then you're going to go ahead and click import form, and then you're going to go ahead and click from a web page, and then you're going to go ahead and paste that template link that we provide for you in there. Once you actually do that, that is then going to allow you to be able to import this specific form that we are talking about, okay? Now, this form on here is set up as a cards view, and you're gonna see that it's already kind of set up for you on here. You click on start, and you'll see that it kind of walks the person through on here question by question by question. And the reason why this type of form is beneficial is because it prevents overwhelm when the actual person is going through all of these questions, right? So on here, there are a lot of different questions in terms of, hey, what are your specific goals for the first few weeks of the program? Do you have any other health conditions? Do you have any deadlines that the coach should be aware of? Do you currently take any medication, for nutrition specifically on here? Many people want to lose weight and get healthy, but what's your big powerful reason why? Do you currently do any of the following? Do you struggle with any of the following for your nutrition? What do you do for work? What are your typical hours? What parts of your lifestyle would you need to change, right? Who do you need to become? Rate your experience with exercise or movement. You can kind of edit this as well. What equipment do you have? Do you have any injuries? What is a fun fact that we can use to introduce you to the NFW family, the NutriFit Wellness family? Obviously, you can go ahead and change that. And then finally, anything else that you would like for your coach to know. Now, the big thing I want to go ahead and mention to you on this is that all of this is 100% editable, okay? I'm telling you right now that please do not be a remote control student who expects to be spoon-fed, okay? Don't follow blindly. Is that this is 100% editable. We're providing you the foundations for your version 1.0 launch, and then you will be able to go ahead and edit this and tweak this in whatever way you want, okay? And so you can go in here and literally, if there's a question you don't like, if you want to add a question, if you want to change a question up, this is your remote wellness practice, and you have 100% ownership and 100% permission to go ahead and tweak it whatever way you would actually want, okay? Now, having said that, let me go ahead and get into the actual form builder and talk to you about certain things that you will absolutely need to edit, because it's going to be important for you to be able to brand this for your own remote wellness practice. So first and foremost is once you actually go ahead and import this into your account, you'll go ahead and click on edit welcome page, and you'll be able to go ahead and edit this logo right here, as well as you want to go ahead and rename this here and right here, because you obviously don't want RWA template to be on there. Now, whether you decide to go ahead and call this a transformation intake form or you come up with some other kind of cool name, we always liked transformation intake form. It's up to you if you chose to actually continue to use that name or not. After that, right here, it's already done for you. You don't really have to worry about that on there. You can go ahead and review all of the different questions that are on here if you want to make any tweaks to any of the questions, right? If you want to go ahead and call it, what's your experience with movement on here instead of exercise, approximately how much movement do you get a day, all this kind of stuff. If you want to go ahead and, not if you want to go ahead, you will actually have to go ahead and change it right here, NFW family. So that's going to be very important for you to do there. And then once you actually have all of that done, you can also mess around with the theme and the colors and that kind of stuff as well. Then over here, you go over to settings, and then you go over to emails, and you will also need to go ahead and change the email notification that goes out when somebody fills out this form, right? Because you want these submissions. Yes, you can go to jotform.com and you can look at the submissions on the website, but it's much easier to look at these submissions in your email. And so you will want this to actually get sent over to your support email. So that way, every single time somebody fills this out, you have that submission in your email. So you just go over here, click on edit. You can see, this is what that email is going to look like. And then you go over to recipients, and you can just change that right there. So that way, every time your new student fills this out, it's going to go ahead and send a copy of that to your support email. Now, you don't need to send this over to the student as a copy because they don't need it, but you need a copy of that. And so that way, it's going to be very good for you to go ahead and look at over there, okay? So obviously, there's a lot of other, settings on here that you can explore, but those really are the big things that you want to make sure that you are editing and changing, making sure that you are rebranding all of that. So that way, it is according to what it is that you need. And then make sure that you are going ahead and testing this as well in terms of going to publish. Make sure you go ahead and look at what that looks like. If you need to go ahead and open it in a new tab, look at all of that. And then what you're then going to do is you're going to go ahead and actually insert this into your Google form. Okay. So what you're going to do is you can go ahead and let me refresh this on here. And you're going to see that on here, I can go ahead and take a screenshot, boom, just like that. And then I can go back over to my Google form, right? The Google form is kind of the skyscraper, kind of the hub of where everything lives, right? The home. And then you can come over here and say complete transformation intake form. I can replace this filler image with the actual image for the one that I just took. So I can change that. So that way I have it changed. And then on here, I can go ahead and have the actual jot form link. So again, I'm going to go back over here, publish, copy link, boom, come back over here, and then I'm gonna go ahead and paste this right over here, and then completed the NFW transformation intake form and submitted. Obviously, you can go ahead and change that, so that way it's not NutriFit Wellness for you. Boom, just like that. And make sure you go ahead and put that jot form link right over here. Boom, just like that. And so that way, when somebody is going through your kickoff homework on here, they will be able to go ahead and click on the link, go over to the intake form, and actually complete the intake form on there. Okay, so those are all of the steps, step by step, in order to get your intake form set up. What we're now going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and get to the next part, and the next part's going to walk you through how to be able to actually create this link, right? You have this link on here. Let me open this up. You have this link right here, but this is a very messy link. How do you actually create a very nice looking link that is on your domain name? So that way it's nutrifitwellness.com/kickoff homework, and you actually have it on a very nice URL that you can then send to your new students, right? Because you don't have to send them this messy URL. So we're going to actually go ahead and walk you through how to set up a URL redirect. So that way you can have a very nice looking, stylish, branded link. And then that way, whenever anybody goes to that link, it'll automatically send them to your hub, which is your Google form. And then from there, they can go ahead and get into the intake form, the student community, and the agreement, and all of that kind of stuff. So this has been the actual setup for the jot form intake form, and then linking that with your Google form. And now we're going to go ahead and talk about setting up your URL redirect in the next part. We're going to go ahead and get into that now. All right, welcome to part 3 of getting your onboarding homework set up step by step. And so part number 3 is going to be all about setting up your URL redirect. And so like we just talked about, the URL redirect is allowing you to be able to go ahead and take this Google form link that you're going to go ahead and get by clicking on the send button at the top right there. You're going to go ahead and get that Google form link, and then you're going to go over to link. And then you can go ahead and click on shorten URL. Doesn't really matter if you decide to shorten it or not. And then you're going to click on copy. But the problem is that this is very messy, right? It's not a very good and easy way to send it to our students. So when we go ahead and copy this, what we're going to do is we're actually going to go ahead and set up a URL redirect. Now, the cool thing is that normally you'd have to go through some DNS settings, Cloudflare, in order to be able to set up URL redirects. But the beautiful thing is that TCK has already made it extremely easy for us to be able to set up URL redirects to any single email or link or domain that we want to go ahead and do. And this is how we do it. We go over to settings, and then once we go over to settings here on the left side, what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to scroll down over to URL redirects. And then once we are over here, we're going to go ahead and click on add a redirect. And then we click on add a redirect, boom. And then we're going to go ahead and select our domain name. So in this case, obviously as an example, nutrifitwellness.com. And then our path, we can go ahead and select this path to be whatever we want it to be. But in this case, I'm going to go ahead and make it kickoff. Boom, right? So nutrifitwellness.com/kickoff. And then the redirect type, that is going to be a URL redirect. And then the target URL, this is going to be where we go ahead and paste that long link that we had for our Google form. Because remember, the Google form is what houses everything, right? This is what houses all of the steps on there. And then we go ahead and paste that in there, and then we click on add redirect. Now, the beautiful thing about this is that now if I go ahead and open up another tab here, and I go ahead and go over to nutrifitwellness.com/kickoff, it's actually going to take me to my Google form. And let me show you what that looks like right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and drag the screen down just a little bit. So you can go ahead and see, I'm going to open up a new tab. Okay. I'm going to go ahead, nutrifitwellness.com/kickoff was the redirect that I went ahead and set up. And if I click on enter, boom, you're going to see that it actually takes me over to the form. And so I went ahead and replaced that massive link. It's all nice and tidy now with our actual one. And so you can see here, whatever changes that we make and edits that we make on our Google form, that is going to go ahead and show up on here with a really, really nice branded style URL redirect. So that is how we go ahead and wrap up all of the different steps for the onboarding homework. And so there are 3 pieces. Okay. So we have the Google form. And the Google form, and this is just kind of a quick summary that we're going to talk about. The Google form, the GF, not the girlfriend, the GF, the Google form on here is actually the hub, okay? And the hub is what contains everything in terms of the step-by-step, step 1, step 2, all of that kind of stuff. And so from this hub, we are able to go ahead and link all of the different pieces that we need on here. So whether that be the intake form, the orientation video, the agreement, the student community, the Facebook profile, whatever that might be. And then we have on here, we have our intake form. And so this is our intake form, right? IF, we have our intake form. And that is one piece that we have linked inside of the Google form. And that was based as of right now on Jotform. So we have that on there, okay? And then what we did is we used TCK in order to set up a URL redirect. So that way we have a very clean link, the one that we talked about here, that actually goes ahead and forwards over to the Google form. And so altogether, what we're now going to be able to do is we're going to be able to take this link and actually include it in all of our workflows for our calendar reminders when somebody actually becomes a student. And so now we're going to be able to take this really nice, pretty nice link that we're going to take it and we're going to be able to put it inside of different calendar reminders to make sure the student actually fills it out before they actually show up for coaching call number 1. And that's exactly what we're going to go ahead and get into next inside of the main training. Okay, so that has been, for the most part, all of the onboarding setup. Now, I do want to go ahead and remind you really quickly of one of the themes that we talked about, is that as you are going through all of this technology setup, as you are kind of going through everything that we're talking about here, I want to urge you not to get overwhelmed, because remember, all of this was something that you were not exposed to before, and so you were unconsciously incompetent. You didn't even know what you didn't even know. Now that all of this has been exposed to you because you got a little bit of knowledge of it, you're going to feel that, man, I know now how consciously incompetent I am. I'm now conscious of my incompetence in all of this because all of this might be new to me. And so you want to stick with it, do the repetition, do not get overwhelmed. And if you find yourself being somebody who gets overwhelmed with maybe technology and the setup and all of this seems overwhelming and confusing, I'm not sure how to do this, I would urge you to work on your becoming journal so that way you can become the type of person who can effortlessly do this without getting overwhelmed. And it's going to take time, right? You are going to worry, you are going to get stressed out, you are going to have emotions throughout this process. But the difference between students who wear the winner uniform and students who wear the failure uniform, the difference is that the winner uniform students push through despite how they feel, and they take it step by step by step by step. And so I would urge you to go ahead and do the same as well as we go ahead and get through this process. And so what we're going to go ahead and do now is we're going to go ahead and get back over to the main training, because this has been the step-by-step walkthrough of setting up your onboarding homework. So let's go ahead and get back into the main training now. All right, welcome back from that mini training about the step-by-step instructions of your onboarding homework, really going ahead and getting all of that set up so that way you can properly have an onboarding experience that will be enjoyable for the student. Remember, this is just version 1.0 of getting the foundation set up, and then you will be able to go ahead and make it better and better and better from there. And of course, we're going to walk you through that in the future once you actually get to that as well, okay? So the next question is, well, what's next? So now that we've gone ahead and put together the first pillar of your version 1.0 onboarding experience, we're now going to go ahead and get into the second pillar of your onboarding experience, which is the TCK calendar setup. And the reason why this is so important is because what we're going to do now is we're going to actually connect the calendar and the appointments that the prospect is booking, or the, at this point, the customer, the student, the client is booking. And we're going to go ahead and connect it to the onboarding homework. So that way they can actually go ahead and get the onboarding homework when they actually go ahead and schedule for the first call. Okay, so what we're going to go ahead and do right now is walk you through the step-by-step instructions for the TCK calendar setup, and we're going to go ahead and do that and cut over to that right now. All right, welcome to this mini training that's going to walk you through the step-by-step to getting your calendar set up. This is going to be a foundational training that's going to equip you with the skill that you need in order to be able to actually go ahead and use your calendars ongoing inside of your remote wellness practice. Now, before we jump in, just a quick important note is that the TCK team is currently working on overhauling and revamping the entire calendar system in the next 3 to 6 months. Now, everything we're going to go over is still relevant, it's still critical, it's still important, and will get the job done in a spectacular way, but they are actually planning on unleashing an even better calendar system. And you know how all these softwares go, they're always updating and making things better, XYZ. So I'm just letting you know right now that once they do go ahead and release that new update, we will go ahead and redo this training at that time. But for the purposes of what it is that we're going to be doing here, it's going to be more than enough, and it's going to be absolutely phenomenal and spectacular, and definitely get you started on the right foot. So just like we have done in all of the previous trainings, this is going to be a multi-part mini training that's going to walk you through everything step by step. And so part number 1 is going to be all about getting your strategy session calendar set up. Okay, so we're basically going to be setting up different calendars one by one together. And the very first calendar that we're going to get set up is your strategy session calendar. Now, this one is going to be probably the most intense setup because we're actually going to go ahead and show you and share with you the knowledge that is foundational to all of the other calendars. And then once we actually go in and set up your coaching call number 1 calendar, your kickoff calendar, your regular coaching call calendar, all of that is going to be so much easier because what it is that you learn inside of this one right here. Okay, so let's go ahead and walk through this one by one. The very first thing that we're going to be doing is we're actually going to go ahead and create your calendar. So how we're going to do this, we're going to go ahead and click on settings at the bottom left here. And then from there, we're going to go over to calendars. And so once we are on the calendars tab, you're going to see that this is basically where all of the calendars are created and set up. Okay. And so what we're going to go ahead and do here is we're not going to click on new calendar here. Instead, we're actually going to go ahead and create a calendar group. So let me walk you through what that looks like. We're going to go ahead and click on add group. And then once we click on add group, we're going to go ahead and give this group a name. Now, for the purposes of what you are going to be doing, you're actually going to go ahead and just make it one main group. And so you can see here inside of the tutorial, we go ahead and say up to you, up to you, up to you. So it's totally up to you how you want to do this because you can change this later. But for the purposes of this, let's just say we're going to call this NutriFit Wellness Calendars. This is going to just be the same thing here. And then right here, we're just going to call it NFW. Now, obviously, in your case, you can go ahead and call it whatever you would like. But right now, just to keep things simple, I would recommend just having one group. And then as you start to grow your team, as you have a sales department, as you have a marketing department, you have a product department, all this kind of stuff, you can have different calendars for different teams and, different groups and all this kind of stuff. But for right now, we're just going to have one group for everything. We're going to go ahead and click on save. And then once we have that, we're going to have this section right here. And then once we have this section right here, we're going to go ahead and click on new calendar. And then once we actually click on new calendar, you're going to see that it's going to give us a bunch of different options on here to actually go ahead and set this calendar up. So I'm going to go ahead and walk you through this step by step. And then of course, all of the instructions are also going to be available inside of the guide. So that way you can follow along as well from there. And so inside of the guide, you're going to see that some of the different settings that you are going to go ahead and set up on here. So obviously for the user that is on here, you're going to go ahead and put whatever user is on here. So let me just go ahead and refresh this. So add user, you're going to go ahead and you're probably the only user right now, but as you grow your team, you can have more users, salespeople, all this kind of stuff. But you're going to go ahead and put yourself on there, which is probably the main name on here. For this account, it's NutriFit admin, but it might be possibly your name. Doesn't matter in terms of high priority, low priority, doesn't matter because you're the only one who's going to be on here. Meeting location, this is going to be your Zoom personal meeting link, https://zoom.us, all that kind of stuff, right? The entire link is going to be going here for your meeting location, okay? Then in terms of the name for this calendar, it's going to be just as simple as strategy session. So we're going to go ahead and copy that right there. Same thing over here for the description. And then for the URL, you can go ahead and just put strategy session on here, but it can't have any spaces, boom, just like that. Or you can just make it SS. So SS might be a little bit better for you. Then over here for the appointment title, it's automatically going to have contact name token. So it's going to be, just go ahead and replace that with the person's name, whoever books. And then we're going to go ahead and put after that space strategy session. Color, that doesn't really matter. We can go ahead and mess with that later. We're going to click save and continue. From there, slot durations, okay? The settings are available in there. 45 minutes, 1 hour, and then 4 hours minimum schedule notice. So 45 minutes, slot duration is 1 hour. Slot interval is 1 hour. Slot duration is 45 minutes. Appointments per slot is 1. Maximum number of appointments per day, we can go ahead and leave that blank. But in the future, if you did want to mess with that setting, you could. In terms of minimum scheduling notice, we're going to go ahead and make this 4 hours. But again, this is basically what is the shortest amount of time before someone can schedule. So for example, if it is 12 p.m., the soonest they would be able to schedule is 4 p.m. of the same day, right? So 4 hours minimum, but you can always mess with this as well. 3 days, again, doesn't really matter. You can come back and set this up on here. Over here, this is going to be the availability of the calendar, right? So when is this calendar actually available and open? I'm going to show you how to be able to change this on Google calendars as well. So we typically sometimes like to leave this kind of wide open. Even if you won't be able to sell at certain hours, you can block it off on the Google side of things that we're going to walk you through in just a little bit. Then we go ahead and click on save and continue. From there, we have a couple of different things on here. You'll see here, everything is off except these three. So let me just go ahead and turn everything off. And there's going to be let the calendar auto confirm appointment. Yes. Allow Google Calendar to set invites. Yes. And then allow rescheduling. Yes. Perfect. Okay. Next up, let's go ahead and scroll down here. So it's going to be phone number is automatically on here. Email is already on here. Need to go ahead and reschedule. Here's the appointment reschedule link. Okay, awesome. And then finally, you can go ahead and add this if you would like, where if somebody actually wants to cancel, you can go ahead and have them shoot an email, right? So shoot an email to, shoot us an email at support@nutrafitwellness.com, letting us know that you need to cancel, and then we'll go ahead and get that done for you, right? Boom shakalaka. With that being said, on here, thank you message. You can go ahead and have a thank you message if you want. Thank you for your appointment request. We'll contact you shortly. So this we don't need to put. So thank you for scheduling your appointment. Boom. That's it. Or you can say your strategy session in this case, right? We can make it more specific. Boom. And so that is, now we're going to go ahead and click on complete. That's all the settings for that. Once you do that, you're going to see that you now have this calendar that has been created right in here. And so if we want to see what that calendar looks like, make sure all the settings are correct, XYZ, we can just go ahead and click on this link right here, and it will go ahead and show us that calendar right here. And I'll show you another way to be able to look at this calendar in a different way as well. Okay. So you're going to see that this does look familiar because obviously we use TCK ourselves, and this is exactly what it looks like. Now, next up, we're going to go ahead and do something very important. We're actually going to go ahead and integrate this entire calendar with Google Calendar, so that way we can go ahead and block off certain times on Google Calendar, and also we can go ahead and use our mobile app, whether that be iPhone or Android, to look at our availability, right? So basically, whenever anybody books on this calendar, it's also going to go ahead and use the exact same process and book it on our Google Calendar with all the event information on there as well, and make it look all nice and pretty. Okay. And so on here, you can see the note, even though you can see appointments directly inside of TCK from the calendar section. Let me show you what that looks like on here. If I go back, you will see that there's a calendar section on here. And so if I click on the calendar section right here, you will see that I can see what appointments are booked right now. Obviously there's no appointments booked on here right now, but the reason why we use Google Calendar is because it's much easier to be able to see on your computer, on your phone, XYZ, and it integrates extremely well with TCK. So let me walk you through how we are going to integrate this together. We're going to go over to settings. From there, we're going to go down here to integrations. From there, we're going to go ahead and where it says locations Google account, we're going to go ahead and click on sign in with Google. And then once we do that, it's going to have this pop up. Okay, now let's see if it allows me on this test account. Okay, awesome. So you're going to see here lead connector wants to connect. Yes, awesome. We're going to go ahead and click on allow. Boom, just like that. And then, awesome, close. Sweet. Awesome. So you're going to see here that it went ahead and connected that Google account over to this. Now, obviously, yours is not going to be nutrifitrw@gmail.com. This is just a test example, right? Yours is probably going to be, if you already have your personal Gmail, it's going to be a personal Gmail. If you went ahead and signed up for the completely separate inbox that was for your Google Workspace account, then you can go ahead and connect that instead. So depending on what option you decided to go with email, either option 1 or option 2, that is going to be what you connect over here, okay? Now, after you've gone ahead and connected it, we need to go ahead and set up the calendar settings for this. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to profile here on the left side, and we're going to scroll down to where it says calendar configuration, right? So you see right here, so we're under settings, then we're under profile, and then we're here under calendar configuration, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and select whenever anybody books on a TCK calendar, right? We went ahead and set that TCK calendar up here. Whenever anybody books on it, what Google Calendar do we want to go ahead and book on? And so I'm going to go ahead and click on edit right here. And then I'm going to go ahead and I want it to sync with that Google Calendar there. And then I'm going to select my primary Google Calendar. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and cut over to Google Calendars and show you what that looks like on the Google Calendar side. All right, so now you'll see that I am on the Google Calendar side of things. Now, if you don't know how to get to Google Calendar, you can Google it. It's literally calendar.google.com, or you can log into your Google account, click on these dots, and then find Calendar on here as well. You'll see calendars right here. There's many ways to get to Google Calendar. Now, what I can do here is I'm going to go ahead and make a new calendar, okay? So I'm going to click on New, create a new calendar, and I'm going to go ahead and call this NFW appointments or bookings, right? Let's call it NFW. Let's call it appointments. Awesome. And then we're going to click on create calendar. Okay. And then once I create this calendar, if I go back, you're going to see that I now have NFW appointments on here, right? So you can go ahead and call it whatever you want. Doesn't really matter. And then when I go back over to the client kit and I go ahead and I'm going to just refresh this very quickly. And so once it's actually refreshed and I scroll back down here and then I go back over to primary calendar, I go ahead and select this right here. Primary calendar is going to be that NFW appointments calendar that we went ahead and made. Now I could go ahead and put it on here as well, but I want to keep it a little bit more organized so that way it's on a separate calendar completely. So I'm going to go ahead and put that on here, NFW appointments, and then allow for content creation. We're just going to go ahead and make that select default calendar. No problem. Save. Beautiful. And then once that actually saves, what that means is that now if I go over here to this calendar, let's say I open this calendar up and let's just say hypothetically I book an appointment, right? So I'm going to be Jennifer Lopez because I know Jennifer Lopez is in the system. I'm just going to go ahead and make a random number. Boom. And then we're going to go ahead and jlo@gmail.com and we're going to click on schedule meeting. And what's going to happen, let me show you how all of this is going to look. Beautiful. It's already been scheduled. Okay, awesome. Then if I go back, and now I'm on this side, you'll see I have that appointment with Jennifer Lopez right here. I can click on it and I can go ahead and open up Jennifer Lopez's contact on here, right? JLo's contact. And then I go to Google Calendar and you'll see that I actually have that JLo appointment right here. Now on the Google Calendar side of things, what I like to do, which is very helpful, is I do like to go ahead and see, certain appointments on here. So what I like to do is I like to go over here to NFW appointments. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and make this night, or let's just make this morning. I'm going to make it more options, repeats daily. And this is going to go from 12:15 a.m. to 8 a.m. Yes. And then I like to set another one. So let's say, for example, I'm going to work better notifications. No, I don't want better notifications right now. Then I go over here. Let's say I'm going to work from 6 p.m. Go to more options. I'm going to make sure that this is on the NFW appointments calendar. Repeats daily. I'm going to make this from 6 p.m. all the way over to, let's say, 11:30 p.m. And this is going to be night. And hit save. And so now you'll see what I've done is I've kind of made it so that way my mind can just focus on the hours in which I am working. And you'll see here now it kind of gives me context versus before it was just a massive white, I didn't know what was going on here. And you'll see here that I have that JLo appointment right here at 9 a.m. And you'll also notice that coloring on here, right? So you see that little green right there? That green is on here because this appointment or this calendar is green, but then it's also blue because of the fact that if you remember what we did over here, if I go back over to calendars and if I go over ahead and edit this, you'll see, if you remember, we added that as blue over here. And so now that's why it shows up as blue over there. Now, this doesn't matter for you right now, but in the future, you can mess around with color combinations depending on, different appointment statuses and all of that kind of stuff, okay? So that is how we go ahead and actually integrate with Google Calendar, as well as a little bit of a Google Calendar setup that I wanted to walk you through as well. And so that way you can call this NFW appointments or kind of NFW availability or NFW calendar also. That might be not bad, an idea, NFW calendar. So that way you can see what's going on here. Okay. Now, in terms of availability, what I would recommend is that we would recommend you go ahead and leave this availability open, right? So let's say you say, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. CST. And if you don't know, all of the timings for your entire TCK calendar and account are going to be in the time zone of the account. And so if you go ahead and click on business info, you're going to see whatever time zone that is. However, how these calendars work, and the really cool feature about this is that it's automatically going to detect whoever lands on your page. So let's say you're working with a client or a prospect who's in Eastern time zone. It's automatically going to find out that they are in Eastern time zone, and it's going to change their time zone on here and reflect all of the times according to their calendar. But then once they actually book, it's going to show up in your account as your time zone. So it's going to be able to allow you to be able to see in your time zone, and everything they will see is in their time zone. And so what you can actually do on here, going back to the availability, is that you can go over here and leave this availability open, right? So you can leave this availability open on here. And then once this availability is left open, you can actually manage the availability on your Google Calendar side of things. So let's say, for example, I know that, let me show you an example on here, right? So I know this is, for example, Thursday. And on Thursday, I know I'm going to be away from, let's say, from 2 to 4, right? So I don't want any of these appointment slots to be available. So I'm going to come over here on Thursday and I'm going to block off from 2 to 4. Okay. I'm going to make sure that it's in the proper calendar, which is NFW appointments. That's very important. And let's say, for example, pick up kids, right? And then I go ahead and click on save. Now, once I actually go ahead and do that, it's now blocked it off on the NFW appointments calendar. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead over here. I'm going to go over to profile, scroll down, check for conflicts. It should automatically be on here. Let me just make sure. Yep, perfect. And so now if I go back over to my link right here, click on this, you're going to see here that now, because I blocked it off on the Google Calendar side of things, it's a two-way sync. And so now it actually blocks it off on the TCK side of things. And you can also confirm this if I go back over here to back, I go over to calendars, and you will see on here that it shows me everything that I created on the Google Calendar side of things, right? All these events, these purple events, we created them on the Google Calendar side of things. And now they actually also reflect inside of TCK under calendars. And so I can go over here and I can even switch between calendars. Let's say I want to see, I want to see all of the appointments that are assigned to NutriFit admin, or I want to see all of the appointments that are assigned to this calendar. I can see all of those on here as well. Now, the last important thing that we need to go ahead and do, so we've gotten ahead and set up all of the main foundational pieces. You understand Google Calendar, you understand how to connect it, integrate it, all of those settings. Perfect. Now, what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and set up the workflow for that specific calendar. Okay, so what we did is we went ahead and set up the calendar. That's what we did under settings. So we set up the calendar, and then we went ahead and did the GCal setup, which is the Google Calendar setup, and we walked through all of the step-by-step for that. And now the third piece of this is when somebody actually books, not only do we want it to show up on Google Calendar, but we also want them to be able to get certain emails and certain reminders, and we want certain things to happen. And in order for us to do that, we have to set up a workflow automation. So let's go ahead and talk about how to do that right now, which is step number 3. So we're going to go over to automation on the left side. We are then going to go ahead and find strategy session reminder campaign. This is a part of the proven playbook that we have hundreds and hundreds of different templates of, that we've already gone ahead and talked to the TCK team to go ahead and put into all of your accounts. Now, if you do not see it, make sure you go ahead and shoot us a support email, support@remotewellnessacademy.com, if you don't see any of the templates in here, and we'll go ahead and get that over and talk to the TCK team to get that over to you, okay? So over here, we're going to go ahead, and because we're setting up the strategy session calendar right now, we're going to go ahead and set up the strategy session reminder campaign, okay? So we go ahead and click in here. First thing we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to read through all of the text messages. Now, whenever you see these double brackets are what are known as custom values or tokens, okay? And so you can actually add a bunch of different custom values and tokens. So let's say, for example, I wanted to put in here, the day of the week, or I wanted to put the time zone, or I wanted to put the user, or I wanted to put, a whole bunch of, I can literally add a gazillion different things on here, right? So let's say, for example, I wanted to put hi, and then I wanted to put the contact's name. So I wanted to fill in hi, Tina. And so I can come over here to custom values, contact, and I can put either Tina's full name, I can put her first name, I can put her last name, I can put her email, I can put her phone number. All of these are different values that if it is saved on her contact record, what's TCK going to do is TCK is going to go ahead and fill that information in here automatically. So let's say, for example, I only want Tina's first name. Cool. And so when I send this text message, Tina's name is automatically going to go ahead and get populated in here, right? So that's going to be on there. And then, I could even have is your email address, something like, contact email. And then I'm looking forward to talking with you at, appointment. And then I could put, appointment start date. Start date and time. And then I can also put the appointment, time zone if I wanted to. Now, all of these are going to be values that get filled in. So let's go ahead and delete this. And you'll see that we've already gone ahead and built all of this for you. So you'll see here, this is the text message. This is the email campaign. And then what you want to do is you want to go ahead and read through this, okay? Because for you are not going to have on your strategy session probably you don't have a bonus video or anything like that. So what you want to do is you want to come over here and probably remove bonus video, okay? And you want to go ahead and put Zoom link. I look forward to speaking with you, and then here, you want to go ahead and put your Zoom link, and you're going to go ahead and paste that right here. So that way it's going to go ahead and in the email, send them their Zoom link. And then right over here, this is going to be your name, Remote Wellness Practice. So you want to go ahead and put, Coach Yasin at NutriFit Wellness, right? So you can go ahead and have that on there. And then if you need to reschedule, awesome. And then right here, you can use the link to reschedule. And then you can insert the link to reschedule right here if you want. Appointment and then reschedule link. Boom. Right? And then you can go ahead and put that right there. So that is some changes that you can make on this specific one over here. Then you click on Save Action. And then when you actually click on Save Action, you want to go ahead and make sure you click on Save at the top right as well. So that way everything is saved properly. Then it's going to wait 1 minute. Then it's going to send them another message. I've emailed you the same link. This is if you have a bonus video for your strategy sessions, which at the level that you're at, you probably do not have this. So in this case, I'd probably go ahead and just delete this. That's perfectly fine. I can probably also delete this wait timer on here. Delete action. Yes, perfect. 3 days before, it's going to go ahead and send the 72-hour reminder. Hey, just a reminder, your strategy session's in 72 hours. Boom, perfect. Awesome. 48 hours. Hey, just a reminder, reserve the spot. Can't wait to talk to you. Link to join your Zoom. So this is going to be where I need to make sure I go ahead and put my Zoom link on here. Very, very, very important on there. Email. Beautiful. Awesome. Here's the link to your bonus video. Probably go ahead and remove that because you guys don't probably have a bonus video right here. Talk to you at this. Coach Yasin. Can't wait to speak for you to speak. Can't wait to speak with you tomorrow. Can't wait to speak with you tomorrow, right? Coach Yasin at NutriFit Wellness, right? Or something like that. You can have that. Or if you have like an admin, what we used to do in the very beginning was we went ahead and had a certain admin that maybe we had hired, and then we went ahead and used her name for everything on the communication. You can do that as well. Not a big deal. Don't sweat the small stuff. Again, all of these over here, we're going to go ahead and take out the bonus video. So what we're probably going to go ahead and do is I'm going to talk to the TCK team to go ahead and probably take these bonus video mentions out. So that way they aren't in your account, because for you guys at your level, you probably don't need a bonus video before talking to somebody. On the strategy sessions can just complicate things. On here, you can look at this. Beautiful. You can add your Zoom link here. That's going to be very important. Make sure you go ahead and insert your Zoom link. These links right here are just links for them to go ahead and download the Zoom app on their phone and go ahead and take care of that on there. And then boom. Save. We're then going to go ahead and click on publish. And then this is very important. All the way up here, this is the trigger. It's not going to work unless you actually fix this trigger right here. And this trigger is going to be appointment status. You want to make sure that this is appointment status, and then add filters. Filters are going to be appointment status is confirmed. And then you're going to add another filter, and then is in the calendar. And this is going to be right here, strategy session calendar. We're going to go ahead and click on save trigger. So that way, what we're telling TCK is that whenever anybody books inside of this calendar and that appointment is confirmed, then we're going to go ahead and have them start this entire campaign. We go ahead and click on save, and boom, shakalaka. With that being said, we have this now live. And so if JLo was to go back and book that appointment the way that we had done previously, she would go ahead and get all of these messages according to this entire timeline. So that's what all of that actually looks like in terms of part one. Remember, I said this was going to be probably the most intense part, because this is the foundational pieces of understanding how the calendar system in TCK works. If it is overwhelming for you, don't worry. Skill equals knowledge times reps. You probably just don't have the skill just yet. This is the knowledge that exposed how incompetent you are at TCK calendars, which is okay. Don't worry, you're going to get better. So with more repetition, you're going to get better and better and better at this, and it's going to be easier and easier and simpler for you. So what we're going to go ahead and do now that we have these foundations in place, we're now going to go ahead and set up your coaching call number 1 calendar, which is going to be your kickoff calendar. And we're going to go ahead and link your kickoff call homework into that calendar as well. So we're going to go ahead and cut over to that now. All right, welcome to part number 2 of your calendar setup. And in this side of this section, we're going to go ahead and set up your CC1 calendar. Now, the reason why your CC1 calendar, your coaching call number 1 calendar, is separate from the rest of your coaching calls is because this is essentially going to be your kickoff call calendar, okay? And so what's going to happen is that the workflow that we set up with all of the text messages and emails is going to have the link to your intake form and to your Google form and all of that kind of stuff. And so even though we are going to have a normal weekly coaching call calendar, which is part number 3, we're going to set up after this, we're going to go ahead and set up CC1 calendar separately so that way they can actually get all of the onboarding emails and all of that kind of stuff. Okay, so let's go ahead and walk through how to actually go ahead and create this calendar so that way you are rocking and rolling. And then at the end of the strategy session, this is going to be the calendar that you book your new student on. So let's go ahead and walk through on how to actually do this. So the first thing we got to do is we got to go ahead and create this calendar. So we're going to go to settings, calendars. From there, we're going to go ahead and create new calendar. Okay, so settings, calendars. We're then going to go ahead and click on create new calendar. And this calendar is going to be coaching call 1 calendar. Okay, so coaching call 1, which we know is kickoff. Okay, and so that's going to be the name. Description can be the same. We can call the slug on here can just be CC1, so coaching call 1. And then in terms of the appointment title, we can just go ahead and copy this over here and then contact name space dash space and then paste that right there. The color, let's say hypothetically you want this to be green on Google Calendar, doesn't really matter. Add user, of course, it's just going to be you. So you're just going to add yourself on there for now. Meeting location, this is very important. You want to make sure that you have your Zoom link there for your meeting location. So make sure you go ahead and put that right over there. From there, we're going to go ahead and click on save and continue. Now, in terms of the settings, similar to the strategy session settings, we're going to have here, slot duration, slot interval, 45 minutes, 1 hour. Appointments per slot is going to be 1. Appointments per day, doesn't really matter. We can leave that blank. And then in terms of the scheduling notice, this is completely up to you, but minimum scheduling notice, you can put 4 hours if you would like. So that way that's the minimum time that somebody can schedule. And then the date range on here, you can leave this open so that way you can schedule the first coaching call for the person even far out. So this is the maximum amount of time that the calendar is going to show availability. Okay. And so that way it's going to be limited to maximum 21 days out. Then in terms of office hours, again, you can leave these general and control this on the Google Calendar side of things. Save and continue on here. In terms of confirmation, we're going to go ahead and turn everything off except for let calendar auto confirm my appointment, allow Google Calendar to send invitation. Beautiful. Awesome. Now, this is where it's going to be a little bit different. Additional notes on here is that we're going to go ahead and have a couple different things on here. The very first thing is we're going to go ahead and have this step-by-step on here. So we're going to go ahead and have additional notes. So this is going to be the additional notes on the actual Google Calendar event, right? So we're going to go ahead and have kickoff call homework. Beautiful. And so over here, you can go ahead and make this, even if you want, you can make this, let's say coaching call 1 kickoff homework, right? If you wanted to make that. And then it's really important for you to get all 4 steps. If you actually have 4 steps, make sure you actually go ahead and change that if you actually changed it on the Google form. From there, students who do not complete their 4 action steps will have their kickoff call canceled or rescheduled. This might be too aggressive for you in the one-on-one model. We have this because of the fact that we get a lot more volume of students. So you can actually delete that. And I'll go ahead and remove that actually from the guide as well. All right. Then in terms of phone, email, awesome. And then reschedule. If you would like to reschedule, enter. If you would like to reschedule, shoot us an email at support@nutrifitwellness.com. Of course, make sure you go ahead and put your own support email on here. And then finally, the thank you message at the bottom can just be thank you, you've made a great decision, and you are in great hands. Now, most of the time, you're going to be handling the scheduling at the end of the strategy session for coaching call number 1. However, this is in case you are not handling it, having that thank you message is nice. Okay, so that is going to be the settings for this right here. We are then going to go ahead and make sure that right over here, this is very important, right over here, we need to include the link to our kickoff homework. Well, where do we find that? Guess what? That's exactly what we went ahead and set up previously. So if I go over to settings in a new tab, so I just switched over to another tab, and just so you guys know, on Google Chrome, let me come and bring this down a little bit, is on Google Chrome, you can actually right click. And let's say, for example, I'm over here, I want to right click, I can duplicate this tab and it'll go ahead and walk me through and bring me back to the client kit, right? Or you can open up another tab and open up the client kit from there. So either way, doesn't matter. In another tab, you want to open up the client kit. You want to go back over here to check your URL redirects. And if you remember, we actually went ahead and set up that redirect to your actual, orientation homework or your kickoff homework, right? And so on this case, it was www.nutrifitwellness.com/kickoff. And so that's exactly when I go back over here to this tab, what I want to go ahead and put right over here. So I'm just going to go ahead and type it right over here, www.nutrifitwellness.com/kickoff. And what I like to do, if I ever type a URL, if I'm not copying and pasting a URL, I want to make sure that this actually works. So I'll just copy this, open another tab, paste it, just confirm that it actually works, which it does. Beautiful. And then I'm going to go ahead and click on complete. And just like that, I now have my second calendar underneath my group of NFW calendars, right? I have my coaching call 1 kickoff calendar. Beautiful. Now, obviously at this point, because of the fact that we've already done the Google Calendar integration, this is actually going to work perfectly fine the way that we want it to. And in order to confirm that, we can actually come over here and look at profile again, scroll down over here to calendar configuration. And it's going to show us that whenever anybody books for this specific user, right, the user that I'm on right now, it's going to go ahead and book it on the NFW calendars on there, which is beautiful. That's exactly what we want. So there's really nothing for us to mess around with on the Google Calendar integration side. However, there is a workflow that we need to set up for the reminders for this. So we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go back. We're going to go over to automations. And then once we are in automations inside of your account, we've already requested to the TCK team to go ahead and import and upload into your account this kickoff CC1 reminder campaign. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open this up, and we're going to go ahead and from the very get-go set up the trigger. Okay, because without the trigger, nothing else is going to work. So trigger. And we're going to go ahead and do appointment status is, and add filter, appointment status is confirmed. And this is going to be in calendar, and this calendar is going to be the coaching call 1 calendar that we just set up. We're going to go ahead and click on save trigger, click on save up here. We can also go ahead and make this published so that way it is live, that you can go ahead and do that as well. And then you'll see on here the first SMS that the person is going to get. When they actually get booked for coaching call number 1, this is the first text message that they're going to get. It's going to say, hey, welcome to the family. Here's the link to your homework. And so the same link that we had previously is the same link that we're going to go ahead and have over here. All right. And so in my example case, that was the www.nutrifitwellness.com/kickoff. That's what we're going to go ahead and put there. And then you want to edit it over here. If you have more than 4 steps, less than 4 steps, whatever it is, make sure that number is accurate. This is just a token custom value. We can leave that. Click on save. We are then going to go ahead and look at the second SMS on here. Beautiful. That's good. The third SMS on here. Beautiful. That's good. We're going to go ahead and check the email on here. Awesome. Very good. Then right here, link to join the meeting. We want to have our Zoom link right here. That's very important. Let's check SMS 3. Here is the link. Make sure you have all 5 steps completed so we can go ahead and replace that right there. Very important to have that link set up on there. Save. Awesome. Let me see on here. Make sure you've gone ahead and completed all 4 steps, because in mine I only have 4, and submitted it at the bottom. Awesome. Zoom link. Let's see on here. Okay, we might have to back this up. Beautiful. Make it nice and tidy. Awesome. Very good. Here's the Zoom link. So again, you want to go ahead and make sure you put your Zoom link on there. Save action. Video meeting link right here. You want to make sure you have your Zoom link right there. And yep, that's it on here. Beautiful. Yep. And then you go ahead and click on save. And so this is going to be the campaign and the workflow that when somebody actually purchased from you at the end of the strategy session, you're going to go ahead and book that appointment. And when they book that appointment for CC1, which is your kickoff call, which is basically your coaching call number 1, then they're going to go ahead and get all of these messages. And these messages are going to keep them warmed up. They're going to keep them excited. And you can even add, if you want to add an email in here, you want to add even more stuff. Hey, I want to add a, excitement thing. You want to build suspense. You want to, whatever. There's a lot of things that you can do, but this is the version 1.0 foundation that is going to get you started so that way you can get rocking and rolling with this. Okay. So this has been part number 2 of setting up your coaching call number 1 calendar that integrates with your onboarding homework. So that way all of it is working together as a system. Now, just a quick reminder, remember, if any of this seems overwhelming, it's just a one-time setup. I cannot even tell you, like we literally set up our calendars and our workflows one time, and I think we look at them like once a year or something, like if we need to make a change or something. So this is a one-time project that once you have the skill of doing, you can always go in and edit and make it better, XYZ. So just muscle your way through it. It might look confusing, it might look overwhelming, but just follow everything step by step by step. We've broken this down so that way anybody with any tech level ability can do this. Just follow the instructions and you'll be able to be successful with this. Okay, so with that being said, we're now going to go ahead and get into part number 3. And part number 3 is going ahead and setting up your weekly coaching call calendar, which is your ongoing coaching call calendar that you're going to book with the prospect or with the student every single week. So we're going to go ahead and cut over to that part now. All right, welcome to part 3 of getting your TCK calendars set up. So we're going to go ahead and set up your third very important calendar, which is going to be your weekly coaching call calendar. Now, this calendar is going to be your normal ongoing weekly coaching call calendar in which you're going to go ahead and schedule for your student. So that way they get reminders for their appointment, okay? And so we're going to go ahead and walk you through how to do that. And so far, you should have your strategy session calendar set up. So this is going to be a prospect that doesn't know you. That is going to be the calendar that you go ahead and set them up with, and then it's going to go ahead and put them in that campaign. And then once at the end of the strategy session, when they go ahead and become a student, you'll be able to go ahead and book them into the Kickoff CC1 calendar. Now we're going to go ahead and create another third very important calendar. We go to Settings, Calendars. We're going to go ahead and create another calendar, which is going to be your ongoing coaching call calendar. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and click on New Calendar. We're going to go ahead and add user. Make sure you go ahead and add yourself. High priority, doesn't really matter. Meeting location, make sure you go ahead and put your Zoom link there. So for all of these calendars, it's the exact same Zoom link, which is your personal ID Zoom link, and you can just control who comes into your meeting via the waiting room. That's the easiest way to do it, okay? This right here is going to be coaching call calendar. Right here, it's going to be just coaching call, right? Coaching call is fine. Coaching call is going to be just CC, that's fine. And then right here, you can just call it coaching call, boom. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. We're going to make it orange. Doesn't really matter. Save and continue. From here, the slot duration is going to be exactly the same. 45 minutes, 1 hour. Buffer in between, that's up to you if you want to have a buffer in between appointments per slot, boom, just like that. Minimum scheduling notice, you can go ahead and just make this 4 hours, the same way we've been doing it. This one, you can go ahead and expand it out to 21 days, that's fine. Availability in terms of office hours, you can leave this open and then control this on the Google Calendar side of things, just like we've been doing with all of the other calendars. And then in terms of confirmation, same thing as always. We're going to go ahead and change this up on here. Let the calendar auto appointment, yes. Allow Google Calendar to send invitations or updates, yes. And then this is up to you. Do you want to allow your students or your clients to reschedule on their side and cancel on their side? Or do you want to have them actually communicate with you when they want to reschedule and when they want to cancel? The reason why we like it that they are forced to communicate with us is so that way we don't think, oh, I have to meet with Tina at 2 p.m. on Tuesday. And then like Tuesday morning comes and I find that Tina's gone ahead and just like rescheduled the appointment, right? And I'm like, what the heck? There's an appointment here. It's not here anymore. This is confusing, XYZ. And so we like it to the point where we want to make sure that the student actually has to email us or communicate with us if they want to go ahead and actually reschedule. And so if we want to actually do that, we can actually go ahead and include this verbiage right here, which says reschedule right here. It's in the guide. We can come over here, boom. And then if you would like to reschedule, shoot us an email at, and then you can have, your support email, xyzwellness.com, right? Just as an example. And then custom code. This one can be thank you, your appointment, your coaching call has now been confirmed, right? So you can just go ahead and have that there. So pretty straightforward at this point. You get the gist of how all of this works. We go ahead and click on complete. And then the beautiful thing about this, just like we've been doing so far, is that the Google Calendar integration is already set up. So if I was to click on this right here and anybody was to go ahead and book on this for the coaching call, right? It's going to automatically show up on my Google Calendar, which I can then see on my phone and I can integrate with other things, XYZ, right? Really cool stuff. Now, the other thing we got to go ahead and do though, is we got to go ahead and set up the workflow reminders for when somebody actually books on this calendar. So you're noticing on here is that each of these calendars have their own individual workflow that is set up as the emails and the text messages and the automations for when somebody books on that calendar. Now, text message and emails are really just scratching the surface of what workflows can do. You can even set up like crazy automations, like add a tag and put them into this campaign and send this over to a different software. And there's a whole bunch of stuff. But the very basic of it is when somebody books on this calendar, what sort of emails and text messages do you want to send them? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and set up the workflow for this specific calendar. We're going to go ahead and go back. We're going to go over to automation. And then again, inside of your specific calendar, you're going to go ahead and see on here, inside of your automations, you're going to see on here that there is a workflow that has already been imported into your account. If you don't see it, make sure you go ahead and let us know so we can go ahead and notify the TCK team. But this is going to be called the one-on-one coaching call Zoom meeting reminder campaign. Okay. Now, the reminder campaign on here needs a trigger. We're going to go ahead and do appointment status. This time is going to be, let's say appointment status is confirmed. Yes. Now this time it's going to be that it's in the calendar. What calendar is this? It's in the coaching call calendar right here. That's the one we actually created. We click on save trigger. We go ahead and click on save at the top right. We go ahead and click on publish. Okay. And just like we've been doing for all the other ones, we now need to go through this and make sure that if there are any changes that we want to make, you'll see on here the Zoom meeting link. This is our NutriFit Zoom account. You don't want to use this one, right? You want to insert your own. So insert Zoom link. This is going to be very important, right? You don't want your students to be joining our Zoom link on here. And then you can put, Team NutriFit, whatever you want to do on there. Awesome. Save. Just checking up all of these. Email. Same thing on here. Clean this up. Backspace this. Talk to you soon. Right here. This Zoom link. You want to include your own Zoom link right here, okay? Zoom link. Make sure you put your own Zoom link. Very important to check. One way that I like to check is just looking at the last 4 or 3 digits of this Zoom link. So I can just look at that in my Zoom account and put that on there, okay? So again, make sure you put your Zoom link there. You can check all of these messages. Make sure that everything looks kosher. Everything looks good. Everything is halal. Everything is rocking and rolling for you. On here, beautiful Zoom link. Very nice. Okay, cool. So again, you can tweak this and edit this however you would like. Just make sure that you go ahead and click on save and you are rocking and rolling from that. So now what's going to happen is that every week you can actually go in and book your student into the next week's appointment. And then when they have that next week appointment, they're going to be able to get all of these reminders. And so what we're going to go ahead and do next is, now that you have the 3 foundational calendars set up, I'm going to go ahead and walk you through how to be able to test this, as well as show you some pro tips on how to be able to schedule appointments for your students and for your prospects, XYZ. So I'm going to show you how all of this works. Remember, I know this training is a little bit longer, but this is the foundational training on how to use the calendars feature inside of TCK. So that way, once you have this foundational skill, it's going to be very easy for you to be able to set up calendars, because you have this skill in your toolbox pretty much for the rest of your career as you run an online income. That's going to be very important for you to be able to do. Okay, so what we're going to go ahead and do now is we're going to go ahead and get into part number 4, which is going to walk you through testing and some pro tips around this as well. So let's go ahead and talk about part number 4 now. All right, welcome to part number 4 of this mini training and this tutorial that's going to walk you through testing and some pro tips around managing calendar and calendar availability using TCK and Google Calendars and all of that kind of stuff. So once we have all of the above parts set up, that is the foundation. Now what we can do is we can actually test to make sure that all of this is actually working. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a couple different ways to be able to go ahead and schedule appointments with customers, with students, with clients, with prospects, whoever it is. Let me show you a couple different ways that we can do this. Okay, so I'm going to show you 3 ways in particular. Method number 1 is actually sending the link to the calendar that's going to allow whoever it is that you are sending it to book the appointment. Now, there's a couple different ways to do this. Okay, couple different ways to do this is that you can actually come over here and click on this link right here. And when you click on this link right here, I'm going to go ahead and click on it right here. And what it's going to do, let me go ahead and drag this down a little bit so you can see, is what it's going to do is going to go ahead and have this link right here, right? It says link.theclientkit.com/widget, This link right here I can go ahead and copy this, right? If I click on it, I can copy this. And when I copy this, I can actually send that link now to somebody else. But the one thing that I'm not a big fan of when I do it this way is that if I go ahead and click on back, it'll show me all of the different calendars that are within this group. So then the question is, well, how can I go ahead and send them the link only to that calendar so that back button doesn't actually show up? Let me show you how to actually do that. So you go over here to calendar code, and then once you actually click on calendar code, I can go ahead and put calendar group NFW calendars, right? And then calendar, let's say for example, I want to send somebody the link only to the strategy session calendar, okay? And I'm gonna go ahead and click on dedicated calendar link. And then what's gonna happen is it's gonna give me this calendar URL right here. Now this calendar URL is specific to that calendar, which is a strategy session calendar. And then obviously there's an embed code on here if you wanted to put this on a website, so you can go ahead and import this into your funnels and your websites, but we're not talking about that right now, right? So we're talking about this link right here. And if I go ahead and click on this link, you're going to notice that that back button that was located here is now gone. And so this is one way that I really like to go ahead and send out the links. And that's how we do it here at RWA as well, is that you can actually send out the dedicated link to that specific calendar. So let's say, for example, you wanted to go ahead and have somebody book a coaching call. Rather than clicking on right here and then having that back button show up at the bottom left, you can go ahead and click on calendar code. You go ahead and put right here, coaching call 1 or coaching call, just whatever, coaching call 1 or normal coaching call, and then calendar URL, boom, and then you're going to see that that back button is not on here. So that's just a pro tip on how to actually go ahead and schedule. You can go ahead and send the link to whoever is scheduling so that way they can schedule that way. That is the first method that I wanted to go ahead and show you in terms of how to actually schedule appointments, okay? The second method that I want to show you on how you can actually go ahead and schedule appointments is actually going into contact records. So if I go over here to contacts at the left side, and then you're going to see I have all of my contacts on here. Now, once you actually go over here, let's say, for example, I wanted to book, LeBron James into an appointment, right? So I click on LeBron James, and when I click on LeBron James, you're going to see on here that inside of his contact record, on the left side, I have all of his information, right? And if I want to get his date of birth, all that kind of stuff, I can. And then over here on the right side, it says appointment. Now, what I can do over here is I can click on appointment, and then I can go ahead and click on add new. Right? So you see on this add new button. Now, what it's going to do is going to show me the history of every appointment that LeBron James has booked in my system for the history of time that he's been a contact, right? So this is the CRM side of things. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and book him into an appointment, and I'm going to click on add new. And then when I click on add new, I can select what calendar I want to go ahead and book LeBron James on, right? So if I want to go ahead and book him for, let's say, coaching call number 1, I can go ahead and do that. All right. Team member, there's obviously only one team member on this organization, so it doesn't matter. And then right here, it's going to go ahead and show me the slots in the time zone that is for this specific account. But I can also show the time slots that are available in different time zones as well. So let's say hypothetically, in this case, LeBron James, it says, is in Chicago, which is, CST, which is the way that the account is set up. However, let's say, for example, I wanted to go ahead and change LeBron James's time zone, and I know that he plays for the LA Lakers. So I'm actually going to go ahead and move this over to PST time. So let's say, for example, he's in Los Angeles. I'm going to go ahead and click on save. And then you'll see if I click on add new over here, I can actually now switch between the time zones and say, hey, let's say I'm texting back with LeBron James. LeBron James is like, yo, I need to book a time slot for 3 p.m. Now, obviously, LeBron James is talking about in Los Angeles time, right? So I can go ahead and see, you know what? Do I have a 3 p.m. available, but like based on my time zone? I can check that. So I can go ahead and click on Los Angeles time zone. I can click on whatever date I want to go ahead and look at it. And then I can see what times are available, and I can communicate back and forth with LeBron James. And all of these times are in Los Angeles time. Okay. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, make sure you go ahead and use TCK Priority Support. I'm sure they can explain it even better. They have support articles all around this. And then let's say, for example, I was going to go ahead and book coaching call XYZ. I can actually leave all of this stuff blank, and then TCK is going to go ahead and fill all of this in for me. So let's say, for example, I'm going to book this. I'm going to go ahead and click on book appointment with LeBron James at that time. What it's going to go ahead and do is you're going to see that appointment now shows up on here. And then boom, you're going to notice that it says, LeBron, your one-on-one meeting has been confirmed for XYZ. And it's going to go ahead and change all the times according to LeBron's time zone as well. So all the text messages that are being sent out, all the emails are going to be in his time zone, okay? And then you are also going to notice that if I go over back to my Google Calendar, you'll see now I have LeBron James and I have J-Lo scheduled right there, Jennifer Lopez, right there, boom, just like that. And so now the entire system is working properly, and he has actually been put into the actual workflow. So on the left side, I can go ahead and look at workflows right here, and it shows one-on-one coaching call, reminder, campaign. He is inside of that workflow. And if I be very careful, and as long as I don't hit that X right there, I can go ahead and click on the small icon right next to the X, and it'll open up in another tab, and it'll actually show me that LeBron James is inside of this workflow, and it'll show me what's happening. And so it'll show me that he's waiting on this step. So if I go to actions, you'll see this one icon shows me that the first text message has been sent. And now what it's doing is it's waiting 1 minute. After that 1 minute, it's going to go ahead and send the email. Okay, so I'm just showing you the back end of this. You don't necessarily have to be an expert at any of this. I'm just exposing you to know that this stuff does exist. So depending on how much you want to get into the tech side of things, you can. Do not worry. You do not have to memorize all of this. I'm just showing you some of the different ways that you can actually use the software so that way you are flexible with it and have these skills inside of your toolbox. Beautiful. So that is the second way that I wanted to show you how appointments can actually get booked, which is using the actual contacts page, which is the way that we showed right now. You can see on here, looks like LeBron James's email did not go through, unsuccessful, because apparently his email is not kingjames@gmail.com. Hey, who knew? And so that's just an example, of course. But the third way that I want to show you on how you can actually book appointments is using the calendar tab right here. So if I go over to the calendar tab, you're going to see that I have these appointments on here, and I can actually go ahead and, let's say, for example, I wanted to go ahead and schedule a strategy session. I can actually go in here and click book an appointment. Right over here, I can click on book appointment. And when I click on book appointment, it's going to allow me to be able to do the exact same thing, but I can select, hey, do I want to book this with, let's say, Elon Musk, right? So I click on this, and then it's going to allow me to see, okay, you know what? I can see all the availability. So the exact same thing that I was able to access on the contact side, I can also do it from the calendar side as well. And so the exact same thing that we had on there, we can do right here. Let's say, for example, I wanted to go ahead and open up the contacts record. I can click on this button, book the contacts record on here. Or let's say I want to book an appointment with LeBron James again. Again, it shows me the time zones, and I'm back to that same screen that I was on the other side of things. And so those are the three ways that I wanted to show you on how you can actually book appointments and get into the entire setup there, which was sending the link, which we talked about, being able to book it manually inside of the contacts record, as well as booking it manually on the calendars tab. Another point that I want to mention over here in terms of testing is managing the availability. You want to go ahead and make sure that your availability is properly showing, and that way everything is connected. So that way, if you do block off, let's say pick up kids, right? Let's say, for example, I put it right here. If you do that, and that is on this calendar, you want to make sure that it is actually blocking off on the other calendars as well. So you go calendars, you want to make sure that that's not showing up on the coaching call side of things, right? You want to make sure that that's not showing up on the strategy session side of things. And so technically, if you've done all of this properly, that one calendar, which is your GCal calendar, that is automatically going to block off all of the availability on all of these calendars, because all of these calendars are connected to Google Calendar, okay? So you want to just test everything, make sure that, hey, book an appointment with yourself, put yourself in the system as a test, right? If I go over to contacts, you're going to see that I have Yasin test in there. You want to go ahead and maybe schedule an appointment with yourself on different types of schedules as well. So you can go ahead and check, hey, is this showing up on Google Calendar? Is this showing up on the TCK tab? Am I getting the emails? Am I getting the text messages? And you can really start to play around with this and get used to how this entire system works. Now, I know that this was a pretty lengthy tutorial in terms of how all of this works, but again, this is the foundational pieces so that way you can have this skill inside of your pocket and you understand how these calendars work. I remember that I had my mentor walk me through an extensive training around this years ago, and literally after that one training, I had this skill of how to be able to program any electronic calendar ever, right? So this is even before we were using TCK, right? Previously, there was like Calendly and there was Schedule Once and all of these other softwares. They work pretty much exactly the same way. And so once you are learning this skill, it's going to be invaluable for you. So I know this tutorial was lengthy, but this is the foundational setup that is not only applicable to onboarding, that is not only applicable to management, but is going to be applicable for your entire career as an online income earner. Okay, so just remember, if any of this was overwhelming, you came into this being unconsciously incompetent. You didn't even know that any of this stuff existed. And now this training has exposed the things that you are incompetent on, which is, oh snap, all of this workflows and these calendars and this Google Calendar, all this exists. Well, guess what? As long as you stick with it, as long as you do that, you're going to get through this valley of despair, because this is where most people quit, right here in the valley of despair. And as long as you stick with it, it's going to become more and more easier for you. And remember, this is just a one-time setup. But if any of this does get overwhelming for you, make sure that you are auditing yourself and your identity so that way you can actually stick through things and make sure that you are rocking and rolling for the future. And so with that being said, this is is going to really conclude this mini training, which wasn't so mini, but it was quite extensive, but we want to make sure that we get the foundations in place. That was this training specifically for the step-by-step instructions of getting your TCK calendars set up. Make sure you go ahead and follow it step by step. We literally did everything live together. So this should be extremely easy for you and effortless for you to be able to actually do properly. Okay, so make sure you actually go ahead and follow this step by step. That is the TCK calendar setup. And now we're going to go ahead and get back into the main training right now. All right, welcome back from that mini training about the TCK calendar setup that is going to be absolutely so helpful for you, and it really is a foundational pillar in terms of how to use the calendars inside of TCK, because this is going to be so absolutely critical, not only for you right now, but the foundational knowledge and the skills that you're learning are going to be very important as you grow your team and as you scale and as you start to go ahead and get more and more people in your organization. All of these are skills that are going to compound because it's what you're learning that's going to help you in the future as well, okay? Now, the next question is, all right, well, now that we got that pillar set up, what's next? Well, the next part is the pillar number 3, which is payment tracking. Okay, so a lot of what it is that we discussed so far, the onboarding homework, the TCK calendar setup, that's kind of like more student facing, customer facing. The payment tracker is mainly for us on the back end in the onboarding process to go ahead and get set up after we've gone ahead and already enrolled the student to get their ongoing payments set up. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and walk you through the payment tracker so that way you can actually stay organized and send recurring invoices to your students. So that way you're not forgetting to be able to, collect on your contracts that you are having students join with you in the program. Okay, so what we're going to go ahead and do right now is we're going to go ahead and walk you through the step-by-step instructions of what the payment tracker and the recurring invoices look like. And we're going to go ahead and cut over to a mini training that's going to explain that right now. All right, welcome to this mini training that's going to walk you through the payments tracker and the recurring invoices. And so the beautiful thing about TCK is that it has a very robust payment tracking capability that is going to allow you to be able to manage all of your incoming payments as well as schedule them. Okay, now the beautiful thing about this is that TCK does this with a system that is called recurring invoices templates that I'm going to walk you through right now. Now, when would you actually use this? You use this when you actually have a student that has a contract term that is not yet been paid off yet. So what does that mean? So let's say, for example, you sell your transformation program for $3,600, okay? And the student, when they actually join, they would go ahead and say, you know what, up front, they're going to pay $1,000, okay? So they pay $1,000. And so the contract amount is $3,600, but the cash upfront is $1,000. And that means that left on their contract is still $2,600 that still needs to be paid. And so what you've gone ahead and done is you've agreed with this specific student is that they're going to go ahead and make this in 2 payments of, let's say, $1,300, right? So $1,300, when you add both of that up, it's going to equal $2,600. So that means, let's say, for example, they signed up on September 13th. Okay, so September 13th is when they signed up and they gave $1,000 upfront. And then on October 13th, they're going to pay $1,300. And then on November 13th, right, they're going to pay the other $1,300. So on the upfront, what you're going to do is on the upfront, you're going to go ahead and have a one-time invoice. Okay, so one-time invoice is what you have over here for the upfront. And you're going to go ahead and send that the same way that you learned in the previous tutorial on how to send a one-time invoice. But here's the thing. You don't want to have to send them another one-time invoice on October 13th and November 13th, right? You want to be able to just go ahead and charge their card that they have on file. So that way it's an automatic payment. It's not like you have to send them the invoice, they don't receive the invoice and all of that kind of stuff, right? And so that's exactly what it is that we're going to show you how to be able to set up with the payment tracker. And this is another feature yet again that TCK saves us from having to go ahead and get another software. Now, the other point that I want to go ahead and point out here is that this is going to be a part of the admin tasks that you are going to be doing every single time that you have a new student join your program. In addition to having them fill out the kickoff homework and all that, on the back end, you are going to have to go in and set up their payments so that way you can make sure that it gets automatically charged. And alternatively, if you don't want to do an auto charge payment the way that I'm going to walk you through right now, you can actually go ahead and set yourself a reminder using the tasks feature in TCK. So that way you can just get a reminder like, hey, Tina's payment is due on October 13th. And then you can go in and manually charge that payment as well if you want to do that. Okay, so we're going to show you how to be able to use the tasks feature later on inside of the main training, but I'm just going ahead and mentioning that is an alternative method that you can use and just charge Tina's card on October 13th because you do have permission to do that according to the agreement and XYZ. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the recurring payments and the payments tracker so that way you can understand how all of this actually works. And let's go ahead and walk you through that right now. So couple steps on doing this. What you're going to go ahead and do is you're going to go ahead and go over to payments on the left side of TCK. And then you're going to go ahead and get into a new payment. And this new payment is not going to be a one-time invoice. Now, you could do a one-time invoice. Let's say, for example, you set a reminder, you got to go in and charge Tina because you don't have a recurring invoice set up. You can go ahead and make a new invoice. And then you go ahead and say, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and charge, let's say instead of Tina, it's LeBron James that I'm setting up, right? So let's say, hey, LeBron James told me that he has a lot of money. He's going to pay me on October 13th. I go in and this is transformation program right here. I click on save. The amount is, let's say 1,300 is what needs to be paid. I can go ahead and click on save, and then I can go ahead and click on record payment. And then if LeBron James has a card on file, which he already does because he already made the first payment and the payment actually gets saved, I can go in and charge LeBron James's card this way if I wanted to. But that's, again, remember, if I want to go ahead and remind myself of that. But if I want to go ahead and set a recurring template, what I can go ahead and do is I can go ahead and set this up to a recurring template to be monthly on, let's say, for example, a specific date. And that specific date is going to be on the 13th of every month, okay? And it's going to start on October 13th. So let's just go ahead and let's go into next year. Let's just say hypothetically it's going to be October 13th, and it's going to end after 2 occurrences, okay? And then on here, do I want to go ahead and send LeBron James that invoice, or do I want him to go ahead and have it charged manually? I want it to go ahead and charge manually, so I'm going to go ahead and put 0, so it's not going to send an invoice to LeBron James. So what the settings on here that we've gone ahead and done is that it's going to do monthly, and it's going to happen on the 13th of every month. It's going to happen on October 13th because remember, LeBron James joined, Tina and LeBron James joined on September 13th, and they paid $1,000 out of the amount. And then on October 13th, they're going to do a $1,300 payment. And then on November 13th, they're going to do another $1,300 payment. And so what this setting is doing is that it's going to go ahead and send on October 13th, right? It's going to go ahead and charge them on that date for $1,300, which I got to go ahead and set the $1,300 down here. And it's going to do it for 2 occurrences. So 1 occurrence here and 2nd occurrence right here, okay? So now if I go down here, I got to go ahead and set up, again, this is for LeBron James. I'm going to go ahead and set up the product, and the product is going to be transformation program. Let's go ahead and set that up on here. Click on save. This is going to be for $1,300 is going to be the amount, okay? And then from there, I can go ahead and click on save. Now, when I click on save, you're going to see that it allows me to schedule. And then on here, there's a bunch of other kind of things on here as well. But I'm going to click on schedule. And you're going to see that when I go ahead and schedule it, it allows me to go ahead and schedule the invoice, number 1. Number 2, it allows me to go ahead and either email and text LeBron James, email him only, or text him, okay? I can go ahead and set this either as a live payment or a test payment. That's if you're testing this. And then if you have your Stripe account set up properly, it will also allow you to enable auto payment. What that means is that at the time that the invoice is due, it is automatically going to charge LeBron James's card, okay? And then on here, you're going to see if LeBron James had any cards saved, which he probably does if he went ahead and took care of the first invoice, which was the one-time invoice on the strategy session that you had LeBron James pay, the customer pay, right? On here, what you go ahead and do is you can go ahead and set up so that way the saved cards, you can select that, and then that way it's automatically going to process and charge their specific card that is already saved, okay? So that is what you can go ahead and do on there. And then on here as well, you can actually go ahead and have it auto charge using the same card which is used for the first invoice as well, okay? So obviously there's more settings that you can look into that, and then you can click on schedule from there. Now, when you actually click on schedule, you'll see that it says that it's scheduled, and in order to see this, you go over to payments on the left side, and then on this drop down right here, you need to go ahead and look at the recurring templates that you have, and it'll show you, okay, hey, this is what's going to happen. It's going to happen every month, and there are 2 invoices remaining. That means that LeBron James's card is going to get charged 2 times every single month on the due date for this. And if I want to go ahead and see what the details for that look like, I can go ahead and click on this details button right here, and it's going to go ahead and show me the details for this right here. Now, the other feature I want to go ahead and show you is that you can actually see how the name of this is new recurring template. I can actually go ahead and edit this. Let me view, and on here, let me see if I can edit this name. So it doesn't look like I can edit this name because I messed up when I actually created it, right? So if I wanted to edit the name, what I can do is I can actually create a new template. And this is something that you might want to do when you first actually set up the template as you're doing this, is that you can come in here. Let's say I delete this. This action cannot be reversed. Yes, let's go ahead and delete this. I'm gonna go ahead and create a new recurring template. Boom, recurring template. And then right over here, I can actually put LeBron James's name right here. So LeBron James over here, right? And this is going to be his contract amount. And then the same settings that I had, I can go ahead and go through this entire process. And then that way the name is going to show up properly for LeBron James on here, right? So I have to go in here. I got to go ahead and select the client, all that same stuff that we did before. And then that way the name for the client is going to show up. And so this is how you are going to actually go ahead and do all of this step by step. And again, remember, this is something that is important to do for every single new student that you actually have come through your program. So that way, this is kind of like the admin work that is required. So that way you are rocking and rolling. You're making sure that everything is working properly. Now, another quick note as I'm setting this up is you'll see that it says send invoice on and then how many days in advance. If you have this set to 0, then it won't actually send them an invoice according to their email and text message notifications. So let me go ahead and show you what this looks like one more time so that way you understand how all of this works, right? So we're going over here, boom, save, very nice. This is going to be 1300, just like we said. Awesome. We're going to go ahead and click on save. Then we go ahead and click on schedule. And then if I have that set to 0, then it's not going to send them any invoice or anything like that. It's going to send them a receipt that Stripe's going to send them, but it's not going to send them anything from here. Okay. So boom, enable auto payment schedule. And then you will see that now that name that I had on here, LeBron James contract, is now showing up on here and it's showing me every month. There's 2 remaining. Beautiful. Everything is set up properly. So that is how you actually use the payment tracker and the recurring invoices in TCK. And then of course you can look at all invoices that are on there and keep track of that, your subscriptions, all of these other details that are available on here. And then if you need help with this, make sure that you are using the help library for TCK's priority support. That's something that we specifically requested for you guys. So make sure that you are using that as well. And again, like I said, that we are going to be repeating this for every single new customer. And so even though this might only take a few minutes per student, if you are scaling and you're getting to the point where you're having 20, 30, 40 students join every single month, and you're focusing on more revenue, profit generating activities, you might actually hire an admin, a virtual assistant that can even be from outside the United States. It can even be from countries like the Philippines. It can be from different places. And you're able to go ahead and really have an admin do this for you. But for right now, don't get fancy. Just do the work so that way you can actually grow your team in the future, but you need to actually master this yourself so that way you understand exactly how all of this works. Okay, so that has been the step-by-step instructions on how to be able to do this. Again, make sure you are using TCK priority support because they have so many articles on this. But again, this has been the TCK payment tracker and how to do this step-by-step. Make sure you go ahead and play around with it, set up some subscriptions, see how all of that works. So when the time comes for you to be able to set this admin up as a result of your student management and your onboarding, you know exactly how to be able to do that. So with that being said, let's go ahead and cut back over to the main training. All right, welcome back from that step-by-step instructions about the payment tracker and the recurring invoices. That's going to be very important for you to understand and have that skill in your back pocket. So that way you understand how to do the admin setup every single time that you have a new student join with you. Okay, so now that we've gone ahead and completed those 3 pillars of the onboarding, the question that you might have next is, okay, well, what's next? And the answer to that question, it's a great question, is that now that we've completed the onboarding section and we've explained that, we've talked about how to do it step by step, we're now going to go ahead and talk about the actual student management side of things, or also known as student success side of things. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about that and then walk you through the step by step for student management. Okay, so what is student management? So student management is all about the ongoing management that you have with your customers. Okay, now student management, client management, customer management, it's all the same thing. It's also very much known as student success or client success. Okay, so student success is all about doing everything that is going to ensure that your students are successful in the program. Okay, so this can be things like, you know, what it is that you're doing on the support side, on the community side, on the training side, all of the in-between stuff as well, all of the communication that happens, all of that is typically located in the quote unquote department of client success, of student success, right? And so as you grow your team and as you scale your team, the position in your company that this would be referred to as is usually the CSM, or the SSM is sometimes what we call it as well, is the client success manager, the student success manager. So obviously in the beginning, you are the one who's learning everything, so that way you can then transfer that skill over to somebody else. But then once you actually learn that skill, right? So remember, skill equals knowledge times reps. Once you have the skill in your toolbox, you can then develop another skill, which is learning how to be able to transfer that skill to someone else. And so that is going to be when you go ahead and bring on maybe a client success manager who can help you with this kind of stuff while you focus on more revenue generating activities that are going to go ahead and make the company more profitable, XYZ, right? Now, again, remember, sometimes we do call this student success manager instead of client success manager. We've done it both ways. The reason why client success manager is a popular term is because the SaaS world, the software world, uses CSMs. And so that's why it's kind of gotten famous that way. So CSM is a common terminology for this. Okay. Now, in regards to student management, there are going to be two major systems that we're going to go ahead and walk you through on how to set this up for your version 1.0 launch. Remember, we've said this many times before. This is your version 1.0 launch. And then as you go ahead and scale and have more and more students, as you go ahead and get more refined, as your systems get more refined, as you go ahead and have more and more income coming in, then you have a version 2.0, a version 3.0 infrastructure. Because if we went ahead and just gave you all of the details and all of the infrastructure that we have, for example, to run over $100,000 a month, well, guess what? Not only would it be overwhelming for you, you wouldn't know exactly where to start, but it also wouldn't be the main thing that you need to focus on, because you'd be focusing on things that don't matter at this time. And so for your version 1.0 launch, there are two major systems that we're going to walk you through, which is the student tracker system. Okay, so how to be able to keep track of your students in your CRM inside of TCK, as well as what we call the 2-minute per student per day accountability system. This is something that we've quote unquote like patented, if you want to say, like our IP. Obviously you can't patent this, but you know, what we've done is we've really created a system and really refined a system on how we ourselves, as well as all of our coaches, were able to really on a daily basis check in on every single one of our students for only 2 minutes a day. And it was not only extremely highly perceived value, but it also increased the results that our students were getting. And so we're going to go ahead and talk about what that system looks like, so that way you can go ahead and implement it inside of your remote wellness practice as well. And so with that being said, we're going to go ahead and start off and look at the first system and how to set that up step by step, which is a step-by-step instructions for the student tracker. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and cut over to a mini training that's going to walk you through exactly how to set up the student tracker so you can keep everything organized and you can keep everybody accountable and get rock and roll. So we're going to go ahead and cut over to that right now. All right, welcome to this tutorial and training about student tracker and being able to go ahead and track your students for ongoing management. Now, just a quick note about this is that in the past, we have used things like Google Sheets and other softwares in order to manage our active students. But the beautiful thing is that once we moved over to the client kit, once again, we could go ahead and have everything in one place. And this is another big benefit of having the client kit, is we are able to go ahead and keep track of our students and really provide that accountability, support, and service all from one place. So I'm going to go ahead and show you exactly how this is going to happen and how we can actually use TCK in order to go ahead and manage everything. Okay, so how we're going to do this is we're going to go over here to contacts at the left side. And what's going to happen is you're going to see all of the different contacts that are inside of your CRM. Now, with all of these contacts, that does not mean that all of these are students, right? What that means is that these are all people who may have come in from ads. These are people who may have booked a strategy session. These are people who, came in from a lot of different places. But out of all the people that we maybe had a strategy session with, let's say only one of them is actually a student. So let's say hypothetically, LeBron James, right? Let's say he is the one who is the actual student. And so what we can do is we can actually go ahead and create a tag that is going to go ahead and tag LeBron James as the student. So that way it separates him from the rest of our contacts. And how we do that is we go ahead and click into the contact record. And then at the left side, we go ahead and scroll down and go to tags. And then right here, we can go ahead and add a tag. And so in this case, let's say, for example, I wanted to add NFW underscore student, right? Now you can just go ahead and have student if you want. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and just put NFW underscore student. Okay. Now, if I go ahead and click on this plus button, it's going to go ahead and add the tag into the system. Okay. So I'll go ahead and click on NFW student. And then when I click on that, you will see, boom, just like that. It added the tag to LeBron James's contact record that he is an NFW student. Now, if I go ahead and click on here, you'll see that whenever I go ahead and type this in the entire system, it'll show NFW student as a tag that exists. Now, let's say, for example, I messed up on here and, I wanted it to be maybe just student instead of NFW student. So what you can do is you can actually go ahead and click on settings. And then on the left side, scroll all the way down here to tags. And then you can actually manage all of the tags that you actually have right now. So you can create new tags here. You can edit tags here. You can go ahead and, if I wanted to come here and click on edit, and then let's say, for example, I just wanted this to be student. If I click on edit over here, okay, it's going to go ahead and edit. And then if I click on boom, it went ahead and refreshed student. And then if I go back over to LeBron James's contact, right? Let's say, for example, I come over here, go back to contacts, go back to LeBron James's contact, and I scroll down, you're going to see that underneath tags right here, it went ahead and updated it because I didn't delete the tag and make a new one. I just renamed that tag. And so what it did is it took all of the contacts that had that NFW underscore student and basically made them student now going forward. Now, the cool thing that I can do with this, now that I have this tag, and let's say, for example, hypothetically, I wanted to go ahead and add this tag. Let's say one more student. I want to have JLo. Let's say JLo, Jennifer Lopez. She is our student as well. I'm going to go ahead and go to tags. As soon as I start typing in student, you're going to see that that option shows up because I have that tag in the system. So I go ahead and add Jennifer Lopez as student, right? Boom, just like that. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back. And now this is the really cool part. I'm going to go ahead and create a smart list. Okay. So how I do that is I go ahead and click on filters right here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on filters. And then out of all of the contacts that I have, I'm going to go ahead and type in tag right here. And then I'm going to go ahead and put right here tag. And then the tag is, let's say, for example, any of, or is, it doesn't really matter which one you put, is any of, let's say, for example, we go ahead and put the tag is any of student. And then we go ahead and click on apply. And you will see what it does is it actually goes ahead and shows me all of the contacts that are in my CRM. CRM stands for Customer Relationship Management Software. So a CRM is a software that allows you to manage your contacts. And so it shows me all of my contacts that have that tag. And now here's a cool thing. I can actually come in here and I can save this as a smart list. And so that way, let's say to NFW students on here, boom. And then that way, every single time a new contact is added as a student. So let's say, for example, I come back over here and I add Elon Musk as a student. So let's say, for example, he goes ahead and signs up. I add him, add the tag right here, tag, boom, add the student tag right there. I go back. And then I click on NFW students, and you are going to see now Elon Musk shows up. And so this is a smart list that dynamically updates based off of those who have the tag of being a student. Now, let's say, for example, you didn't want to have to go in and manually add this tag every single time. Well, guess what? We can actually use an automation on this. How do we do that? So we can go into automations. And then if you remember, we have multiple different workflows depending on what calendar somebody books on, right? Now, think about this. If somebody actually books a kickoff or a coaching call number 1, they are actually a student, right? Because the only people who are going to get booked on this calendar are students. And so what we can actually do is we can go into this workflow and we can actually add an action right here. So let's say, for example, appointment status is confirmed. We already know all of this, right? And it's going to send them the emails and the text messages. But let's say in addition to the emails and text messages, I'm going to go ahead and add an action on here. And the action I'm going to go ahead and do is add a contact tag. And then the contact tag that I'm going to go ahead and do is I can add a new tag or select student. And then I can go ahead and click on save action. And then I'm going to go ahead and click on save on the top right. Now, when I do this, and what that means is that every single time a contact is booked into this calendar, the very first action that's going to happen is that the tag is going to be added that they are a student. And then after that, it's going to also then send them this text message, right? And so now I've automated this entire process. So that way, let's say, for example, I go back over here and I go over to Dwayne Johnson. Now, Dwayne Johnson, this was somebody who booked a strategy session. Let's say this person actually goes in and books a coaching call 1 because of the fact that they're now a student, right? I can go in here and let's say I book appointment. And when that appointment is booked, you're going to see that it shows up on the appointment section here when I click on that, right? And then also what you're going to notice in just a second, it's going to send them the text message. However, it's also going to go ahead and let's say if I go ahead and refresh this and see if it actually worked for us. If I go over here and I scroll down and I go over to tags, boom, just like that. You can see now that Dwayne Johnson is also a student because of that automation that was set up. And then you guessed it, if I go over to NFW students, just like that, you're going to see that this dynamic smart list went ahead and put Dwayne Johnson as a student. So that way I can have an ongoing list of all of my students, and I can even check when was the last activity that I had with the student. I have all of that information in one place. How cool is that? Pretty cool, right? And so this is the way that we're going to be able to keep track of our students and manage our students. So that way, once we actually start getting 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 students, we don't forget who our students are in order to check in on them, XYZ, right? Now, here's the next thing I'm going to go ahead and show you for the purposes of student management is that there's actually a full-fledged task system inside of the client kit that will allow you to be able to create a list of check-ins. So that way you can actually just check off per student that you have. So let me show you what this means. Okay. So we go over here to contacts, and then from contacts we go ahead and click on tasks, and then we can add a new task. Now here's a cool part about this. Every single day what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to go ahead and check in on JLo. Okay, that's the task. And then, description, you can go ahead and put whatever. Assignee doesn't really matter because you're probably the only user inside of your account, but as you get more team members, you can have more users. Contact, this is going to apply to Jennifer Lopez. And then I'm going to go ahead and click on save. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and repeat this now for all of the students that I have, but I'm not going to go ahead and do it too much, but let's just say I could go ahead and do it for Elon Musk. Boom, Elon Musk on here and click on save. Oh, invalid date. I got to add a date on here. Let's go ahead and put a date of today. It doesn't really matter because I'm going to check in on Elon every single day, right? Save on here. Boom. Now, what I can do from here, and this is the cool part. Oh, looks like I went ahead and have a duplicate on here. What the cool part about this is that I can actually come in and as a part of my task management system, just go ahead and right click and open a new tab, or I can hold on my computer Command or Shift, and Command really on computers, Command or Control on Windows, and I can go ahead and open in multiple tabs at the top. You can't see this right now because my computer's cut off here, but it's opening multiple tabs of JLo, Jennifer Lopez, and Elon Musk at the top. So then I can just come in here and be like, boom, and boom, right? And then just like that, what it's going to do is going to show me that I went ahead and checked in on them. And then the next day, what I can do is I can just come in here, I can do bulk action, I can mark all of these as pending, and then I could just go ahead and open up, again, holding Control or Command on my keyboard, and just open these up into new tabs. And then boom, I can just go in and check in on all of the clients or the students that I have. I can mark them off as complete. So it's like a mini task list in which I'm checking in on these people. Now, the due dates don't actually matter because I'm going to be checking in on them every single day, but that is another way that you can actually just create a mini task list for yourself using the tasks for every single one of your students that are on here. Now, obviously on here, there are also like things like due dates, statuses that you can filter from. You can see only the people who are pending and complete. You can see the assignee, you can see contact. All of these are just tools in your tool belt to use for student management. Now, here's the other piece that's very, very cool about this. Let's say, for example, I am having a conversation with Elon, right? So Elon and I, I'm helping him with his health. I'm helping him have a transformation because he wants to go to Mars and Mars for life at gmail.com. And so let's say, for example, I'm having this conversation back and forth with Elon through text message that's going on here. And I can actually go ahead and add a task to check up on Elon on a specific thing directly from the contact record as well. So I can literally just come in here. Let's say, for example, Elon told me that he has a yoga class that he has to go to next week. Now, he mentioned it very subtly, but what I was doing is that I went ahead and took a note of this and created a task for myself to check in on him. So check in on Elon's yoga, right? And then description doesn't really matter on there, assign to, and then due date. Let's say, for example, Elon told me this is going to happen on the 10th. And so what I can do is I can go ahead and click on save, and then you're going to see that that is going to show up on my task list specifically for Elon. The other cool thing that I can do on here is I can go into notes, and I can actually go ahead and create notes for Elon as we go ahead and have these conversations for things I want to remember, right? So date of birth, maybe he told me, so that way maybe if he's with me long enough, I can kind of send him a birthday reminder, something like that. All of these are things that I can go ahead and just just put on here, right? He likes spicy food. I don't know. I'm just putting this on here, right? So you can supplement the notes that you are taking inside of the coaching calls with the notes that you are putting on the contact record. So you have the tasks that are specific for this specific student. Then you have their notes. Then you have the appointments that they might have as well. So you can see all of their coaching calls that are booked on here, right? Let's go over to, I know we have for LeBron James, we might have an appointment. Yep, right there. And so we can see the task that he might have right here. So right here, task, right? We have the notes that we can see as well. Add a note on here. And then so we got a tasks, notes, appointments. We have the activity. So we can see all of the activity that LeBron has taken across his entire experience with TCK, and everything's located in here as well. And so these are just tools that are in your tool belt that allow you to be able to manage the students, as well as the smart list, the tasks. All of that is coming together as a proper CRM. So that way you can stay organized the more and more students that you have as you start to scale. In addition to that, let's say, for example, that there are multiple messages that you find yourself repeating over and over again. You can actually go ahead and create message templates. Let me walk you through what that looks like. Is you go over here to marketing, and then you go over to templates. And when you go ahead and click on templates, you can actually go in and add a text template or an email template on here. So let's say, for example, I add a text template, and this is going to be like, good morning Friday, right? So let's say, for example, I come in here and I say like, happy Friday. Let's end this week off strong. And then let's say, for example, I wanted to add a GIF. So I can actually go onto Google and I could actually get a URL for a GIF that might be like a funny meme or something like that. I can go ahead and add that in here as well. And then if I wanted to, I could go ahead and add in here, let's say customer value, contact's first name. So that would be like happy Friday, LeBron, happy Friday, Elon, whatever that might be. How you feeling today, right? Something like that. And then I click on save. And then here's a cool thing. Let's say, for example, I go over here, I go over to LeBron's contact record. And when I do that, I can actually go ahead and use that template that I went ahead and created. So I go ahead and click on send SMS, and then I go ahead and use this icon right here. This icon right here is going to allow me to go ahead and send a template. So I click on that, and then right here, let's give it a second because we just added this. There we go. And then we'll see that it says good morning Friday. So we click on use template, and just like that, it goes ahead and puts that template on here. If I had an image attached to it, it will go ahead and put the image on there as well. And then I can go ahead and click on send, and you will see that when it sends, it goes ahead and puts LeBron's actual name inside of that entire message. And so this is how we can go ahead and use templates to be able to facilitate this entire process of communication back and forth as well, and actually add an element of personalization if you wanted to go ahead and do that. And so again, all of these, we're just exposing you to the tools that are in your tool belt for you to be able to use, so that way you understand how powerful of a system that you have at your disposal. Now, here's the thing. As you start to learn how to be able to do smart tags and smart lists and tasks and message templates and taking notes and workflows and automations and all of this kind of stuff, the biggest thing I want to remind you of is the theme that we've talked about over and over and over and over again, right? Is that in the beginning, you just want to go ahead and start off very basic. You do not have to be a master of this. You don't have to know the ins and outs of this. This is just opening doors for you and possibilities for you to be able to experience what is actually possible for you when you use this platform. And then as you go ahead and use this more and more, you're going to go ahead and start finding habits of how you work on this, your own workflow, what works best for you. And so I would urge you not to get overwhelmed. Make sure you are taking this step by step, but that really is kind of the student tracking system that you can start to create for yourself in order to stay organized on which contacts are students, how to be able to manage tasks, how to be able to manage notes, how to be able to remember that this student told you something that you got to remember, right? It's tough when you have like 5 or 6 students and each student tells you something different. You're not going to remember that. And so these are the tools that you can use in order to be able to facilitate all of your coaching relationships, so that way you're seeming personable, but you are also having the notes that are supporting you, so that way you don't have to rely on your memory. And so the biggest thing throughout this, do not get overwhelmed, take it step by step. And then the more you use it, the better you're going to get, because skill equals knowledge times reps. And the more reps you get over time, you are going to get better and better and better. Okay. So with that being said, this was the tutorial on the step-by-step instructions for the actual student tracker. And so with that being said, we're going to go ahead and cut back over to the main training. All right. Welcome back from that mini training that walked you through the step-by-step instructions of the student student tracker. That's going to be very important. So that way you can actually make sure that you are holding students accountable, you're staying organized, you know exactly how to check in on students, all of that. Okay. Now, the next question is, well, what's next? So this next thing that we're going to go ahead and focus on is the second system that's going to be important for you in terms of student management and student success, which is the system that we've created for ourselves that we're going to head and sharing with you, is the 2-minute per student per day daily accountability system. Okay, so we're going to walk you through that. It's very, very simple, but it's something that's going to give you the edge in terms of making sure that you are staying organized, and that way all of this daily accountability isn't taking so much time from you. So what we're going to go ahead and do right now is we're going to go ahead and walk you through step by step exactly what it looks like in order to actually check on each of your students in only 2 minutes per day in the daily accountability system. And we're going to go ahead and cut over to a mini training that's going to walk you through that right now. All right, welcome to this tutorial on the step-by-step instructions for the 2-minute daily accountability system. Now, this is the cadence that we personally used when we were doing daily accountability with each of our students, and it was extremely valuable because it allowed us to be able to offer daily support to the students and make sure that they were succeeding, and it allowed us to only have to do that in less than 2 minutes per student per day. And so it was very easy for us to be able to do. And so I'm going to walk you through that right now. There are 2 parts to the daily accountability system, and each part will only take about 1 minute per student, if not less. And so both of those parts are broken up into the AM part and the PM part. Okay, so what's happening here is that on the AM part, you're going to basically open up your TCK tasks and you're going to mark all of them as pending. And then what you're going to go ahead and do is you're going to go ahead and hold either the right click hotkey, so the command key or the control key, or you're going to click and open up each of your students in a different tab. And then you're going to go ahead and check in on all of your students in the morning. Now, let me go ahead and walk you through exactly what this looks like tactically. And so what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and open up contacts here. And then once we open up contacts, we're going to go over to tasks. And then over here, you probably have all of your different tasks with all of your different students, right? Now, you might be able to come in on here and so over here, I have check in on Elon's yoga. Forget that. Don't got to do that right now. But these are all the check-in tasks, right? So I can actually even search by, like, let's say check-in. And so I know that, okay, this is check-in and I've got to check in. Oh, this says check-in on Elon's yoga. That makes sense. Okay, cool. So you might even make like a system for yourself where like daily check-in, that's the name of the task, right? So you might even come in here and you might click on here and you might hit, daily check-in and you update that. And then you see there's a lot of different ways that you can organize this. And so I'm just walking you through in terms of the system that we created for our coaches internally, because what we did is eventually we weren't even coaching anymore and we just had somebody else coaching and then doing all of the support. So if I come in here and type in daily, you will see that I have the daily check-in. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make sure that these are not green. So that way I kind of have like a mini task list for myself. And so if they are green, then what I'm going to have to do on here is I'm going to have to go ahead and click on this. And I'm going to have to click on mark as pending. So that way everything is marked as pending. And then in the morning, all I'm going to do, once you get into the habit of it, it's very, very simple to do, is let me go ahead and scroll this down here so you can see, okay? What I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm just going to go ahead and kind of hold the control or command key on my keyboard. And I'm just going to go ahead and click. Boom. Just like that, it opens up 2 tabs. And then just like that, it's going to go ahead and open up in the background the conversations with J-Lo and Elon Musk. And so when I go in on here, I can literally just go ahead and check in every single day with J-Lo. And I can look in over here and see, okay, hey, when's their next appointment? I can see any notes I have for them, their tasks that they might have. Maybe J-Lo right now is supposed to be walking 2,000 steps. So I can say, hey, what's going on, Jennifer? Hey, J-Lo, how are you? How was the 2,500 steps yesterday, right? Or something like that. And so then I have that in my notes because I went ahead and just as a reminder to myself, J-Lo this week is walking 2,500 steps daily, right? And so that way I don't have to remember how many steps she's supposed to walk every day. It's already here under the notes section, okay? Now it's just loading here because of the internet speed, but you'll see J-Lo's walking 2,500 steps on here. And so I can just come in here and just send J-Lo a message and check in on her. Boom. That's it. Done deal. And then I can just go over here to Elon and see, hey, maybe it's Elon's yoga day. Hey, Elon, how did yoga go? Whatever. And then when I come back over here, I can just go ahead and mark off, boom, done with J-Lo, boom, done with Elon. And then just like that, it's going to mark these as green. And then that's it. I know it's like a mini task list. I go in there, boom, 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 mark it off as complete, and I am rocking and rolling. Okay. So that is literally how quick it could be in order to do daily accountability. Okay. And then in the PM, I can just repeat that exact same process, and I can just see who replied to my AM message. And then that way I can just go ahead and reply to them in the evening, right? So again, just 1 minute in the evening. Now, a couple coaching points around this is that if a client or a student is mostly compliant, right? If they're doing a great job, they're kind of checking in with you, that's how you want them to be. I would recommend that you don't ask questions. You just offer encouragement, support, and direction, because you don't want to be like, hey, how are you doing? And then all of a sudden they are having a one-on-one conversation with you all over again. So if you see, hey, they're probably doing good, you just want to add some encouragement, it's not opening a loop for them to have to reply to you, and then all of a sudden you have to reply back to them, and it makes more work for them and it makes more work for you. The case where questions are extremely helpful is that if a client or a student has not been responding for a while, right? You're kind of like, they're ghosted, they're kind of where they're at. That's where asking open-ended questions, hey, how we doing? How was XYZ? That can help facilitate interaction. And so this is where you got to be careful, is like, hey, those clients or students that don't need interaction, you don't have to open up that loop. It's like, hey, they're doing awesome. Why make conversation? Because of the fact that they're already doing great, right? You don't got to make more work for yourself and make more work for the student. But if the student is not having that interaction, then you can go ahead and use those questions appropriately. And so the biggest thing when you're using this system is that if you actually do this properly and you're setting the expectations, that you know that, hey, the daily accountability should only take 1 minute per client, per student, per day, is if you only set those expectations like, hey, this is not us having a meeting, this is not us having, an entire conversation through text message. It's very, very brief. And you can expect to only get replies back from me during these hours, and I'll typically only message you 1 or 2 times a day max. That's it. And then if it's a long topic, well, we got to go ahead and save that for the actual coaching call that's going to happen on XYZ date, right? And so if it's something that needs a meeting in order to discuss, we do not discuss that through text message, okay? And then especially, you do not want to be making changes to the student's program through text message. You want to wait until the actual coaching call. You can't be like, oh, this student's really struggling. Well, hey, don't do this action step, or don't do this, or don't do that, or do this instead, and all this kind of stuff. It's very confusing. And so you want to wait for the actual coaching call to provide that in-depth explanation. So that way the student isn't getting confused through text message. Now they're wondering they're like, what did this coach say? I don't understand what the coach said. And then all of a sudden you got to get on a call with them in the middle of a week in order to fix that, right? And so I would urge you to make sure that you refer back to the support training for some very important warnings about how to actually provide support. All of that is going to be very important. So those are just a couple coaching points around daily accountability and ongoing management, and how to be able to use the management software and the student tracker with the daily accountability system, and how all of them are going to work together. And so with that being said, this has been the tutorial on the daily accountability system and how to only have to spend 2 minutes per student for daily accountability if you decided to actually offer it, and if it was a part of your value stack that you wanted to offer to your students. Okay, so that is the logistics and the tutorial and the step-by-step instructions on how to do that. So with that being said, let's go ahead and hop back over to the main training. All right, welcome back from that mini training that walked you through the step-by-step instructions for the 2 minute per day daily accountability system. You see, it's very, very straightforward. It's just helpful to have that in what we call a SOP. If you don't know what SOP stands for, it stands for Standard Operating Procedure. So it's kind of like the thing that you look at. It's like your checklist that's very easy for you to be able to do every single day. So even though it's simple, remember, there's a difference between simple and complex versus easy and hard. So yes, it's simple, but actually doing it every single day, that's the thing that you need to train yourself and your version 2.0 self and your future self and your desired self in order to become somebody who has the discipline to be consistent, okay? And so with that being said, that really does go ahead and conclude the 2 major topics that we were going to go ahead and discuss inside of this training, which was the onboarding as well as the student management and all of the step-by-step instructions that come along with that. And so in order to really bring this home, I really want to go ahead and emphasize a couple different things, okay? Number 1 is that creating a spectacular onboarding and student success experience, aka management, is going to be something that is an ongoing process for you, okay? Something that never actually stops. Now, the beautiful thing for you, though, as you're going through this program, is that you didn't necessarily have to go out there and figure all of this stuff out, right? We've already gone ahead and tested everything, the done-for-you approach, and provided you the foundational elements that took us, honestly, a very long time, years to learn. learn, you literally got all of that in one training, right? And so these are all of the smaller details, all of the finalizing details that are allowing us to go ahead and really start wrapping up your product before we actually start getting into a lot more of the marketing and sales, because a lot of the ongoing process is going to happen on the marketing and sales side, right? So on the marketing and sales side, that's where things are always changing, right? That's where the landscape is always changing. That's where there's going to be a lot more coaching calls in which you got to be able to hop on and get more feedback. For marketing and sales, it's going to be an ongoing process, right? It's going to be a continuous process of refining. But in order to get to that, right, we need to actually first finalize all of the details of your product, because you're not going to have as much time to be able to focus on the product side of things the way you are here in the certification when we actually get into the marketing and sales, because then your focus starts to shift. And so what we're doing here is we're really starting to wrap up all of those things on the product side, so that way you understand, okay, this is how the calendar works, this is how the text messaging works, this is how the emails work, this is how the coaching calls are going to work, this is how the entire workflow is going to work. All of that is putting the foundational pieces in place. And then the beautiful thing about this is that as you go along, it is providing you the tools to be able to customize this further and further in the future. Okay, so I would really urge you to look at how we are doing our business at Remote Wellness Academy. You can even mirror a lot of what we are doing. You can look at other businesses in the online space in order to go ahead and learn from what it is that they are doing as well. You want to remember, you never want to go ahead and rip people off or steal things off of people, right? You want to go ahead and model them. And what modeling means is that you are understanding the principle behind what it is that they are doing, and you are doing it in your own way. This is very important. You don't want to infringe on other people's IP or copywriting and that kind of stuff. It's not good. It's tacky. It ruins your reputation. It's cheap. It's not very good. Okay. And so what I want to urge you is that to look at the space so that way you can actually see, you know what? Wow, this is very interesting. This company did XYZ in their onboarding and in their management. For example, my wife recently just enrolled in some new programs in order to do some personal development for herself. And I just quizzed her. I just said, hey, how was their onboarding? They had a customer success manager. How was that? What did they talk to you about? And I was just learning, right? Not necessarily because I cared about what that program was teaching, but more so I was looking at what it is that they were doing. And this is something that all of the most successful people in the world do continuously. If you actually read Made in America, which is the autobiography of Sam Walton, which he wrote himself, who's the founder of Walmart, he actually documents in that book when he actually goes from zero to, I believe at the time that he passed away was 50 billion. Now it's a $500 billion company. But at the time, he literally documents what he did in order to build a company. He used to say he used to go into other stores and write down, he used to have a notepad all the time, writing down what it is that he was seeing and then modeling that inside of Walmart. And so the beautiful thing about all of this is that with the tool like the client kit, whatever it is that you do see out there, it's very easy for us to be able to model inside of the client kit and have it all in one place. And so ultimately, we want to make sure that you are not limiting yourself only from learning from RWO when it comes to systems and your program. We're providing you the foundational elements, right? Version 1.0. And when you get to the advanced pieces, we're going to go ahead and provide you exactly what's working for us at that time as well. But ultimately, we want to make sure that you are also learning and improving, because that's exactly what we are doing on a constant, nonstop basis all the time as well, is that we are also learning and improving our own systems as well. Remember what Albert Einstein said, education is not the learning of facts, but the training of the mind to think. And so our goal from this program is to provide you the foundational tools, the education, the skills, so that way you can go out there and innovate on your own, create and build and be resourceful in your online income for decades to come. Okay. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and close out this training. All of these were very, very, very important points that I wanted to go ahead and touch on. And now as we go ahead and close out this training, let's go ahead and talk about your engagement question for this specific training, exactly what it is that we talk about in the past. We would love to hear your feedback. I thought this training for me was what are your thoughts on this training? What are your takeaways, insights, or ahas? And then do you have any questions about what was discussed inside of this training as well? And of course, just a quick reminder in terms of how to ask questions, it's very important to make sure that you actually do tag us inside of the student community. You want to make sure that you are tagging the page. If you go ahead and put the @ symbol in your comment in the student community, and then you can tag RWA Coaches is the page's name. And then if you don't get your question answered, make sure you go ahead and reach out to support. We can go ahead and help you on there. Of course, the coaching calls and the office hours are available for you as well. And then in regards to the action steps for this specific training, there are going to be be quite a few action steps as you follow along with the step-by-step. Number one, make sure you go ahead and watch and study this training in full. Number two, make sure you complete the engagement questions for this training, the ones we went ahead and talked about just now. Number three, make sure you go ahead and create your kickoff homework. Make sure you go ahead and do that. Number four, set up your TCK strategy session calendar. Number five, set up your coaching call number one calendar, which is basically your kickoff calendar, right? Number six is going to be setting up your ongoing coaching call calendar. Number seven is to make sure that you are exploring the payment tracker and the recurring invoices inside of TCK, testing that out so that way you are rocking and rolling when the time comes, as well as exploring the student tracker and understanding how the accountability works, the task system, and all of that as well. And then finally, number nine, once you actually go ahead and complete all of that, go ahead and drop a comment or reply to your original comment and let us know, did you go ahead and complete all of these steps? How did it go? What was the entire setup like? Are you struggling with anything? Let us know so that we can make sure that we are keeping a pulse on your progress for accountability purposes as well. And so with that being said, this has been the onboarding and management training, step by step by step. Make sure you go out there and complete the action steps. This is Coach Yassine checking out, and I will catch you inside of the next training.